Happy Monday, everybody.
What is happening?
Good morning, you sweet little prince.
How are you doing today?
I'm feeling fantastic.
Everybody have a good weekend.
Our Buffalo Bills.
Damn right our Buffalo Bills won. Our Chicago Bears didn't get it done, but our Buffalo Bills did, and that's all that matters.
Those were your Chicago Bears. I wanted nothing to do with the Chicago Bears. I do not feel the same way about Fields that you felt.
They covered a teaser bet. That's all I needed. Sign him long-term franchise quarterback. He covered a 10-point teaser. Way to go, Fields.
Was that a good, okay, or overrated game last night on Sunday Night Football?
Ooh, I'm going to give you good.
It was good.
I'm going to give you good.
It was good, right?
I don't think it was overrated. There could have been more points scored. That was the only, I guess, criticism I would have of it. But crazy plays, wild turnovers, dumb mistakes.
Yes.
Like it had all of those.
Punt return
For a touchdown that totally changed the feeling of the game. Could have gone either way. Like it felt like Miami was in complete control, so you had kind of a roller coaster. I think that was a really good game.
You know, Deontay Henry, who returned that punt return for Buffalo, that netted him $250K.
There was a lot of that going on around the league.
I know. I kind of like the incentive
this sack for $500,000 or that touchdown for $1 million bonus.
Oh yeah, these guys are all aware of it. Clowney had a great celebration. I think that was Saturday afternoon for the Ravens. He had a sack and was like dancing around. He just made like $750K.
Did you see the end of the Chiefs game? He didn't really need to be playing, but Chris Jones needed one sack, and he got $1.5 million. He got it.
Yeah.
And he ran to the sideline, and the whole bench knew that he had gotten that bonus and, like, started pushing him around and high-fiving.
Those are the best ones when you know, like, the entire team and locker room is aware of it. You get the celebration. Like, how cool would that be on the radio show? Like, you do a segment properly on the clock. You get a little bonus on top of it. So the second you go to break on the clock, on the dot, then you can see like in the YouTube feed, we're like high-fiving each other. Yeah, we did it.
You get a 50-cent bonus or
Damn
something.
right we do, man. Making wages over here.
You're going to lead me into territory you told me not to go.
No.
Stop.
It would be funny, though, if like, of all the ways, because, you know, Swag, you hear Swag talk about this on the show. You hear Swag talk about it even more behind the show, and then you hear our boss talk about it. It would be funny that instead in radio of giving you like ratings success bonuses, if you cared so much about the clock, you'd give me a bonus on being on the clock.
That's what I'm saying.
That would be a way to get us to focus. The clock would be amazing.
Oh, God. Could you imagine? Just even if it was like an extra $20 every time you properly executed a segment, we would never have a segment where we went over.
Every segment, $20?
Yeah, it'd be a good little deal.
That would be perfect. I bet you would be a perfect show.
I think it would. 12, break. I don't care if I'm in the middle of something. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to slowly push the microphone away from me, and we're just going to go to commercial break.
Damian Lillard's on the line. Nope, gotta go.
We just do it.
Sorry, Dame. We got to hang up on you. We're got to go to commercial break.
We just do the old Colin Coward where he's like, and I'll tell you one more. Colin here. Just cuts the show off, goes to a commercial with Colin Coward, who always seemingly repeats himself.
And we just play a cha-ching sound right as we go to break. Cha-ching.
What is that, by the way? Is that a bad edit?
No, that is because his show, the way that the satellite works, they go from the TV feed to there's a separate commercials
so
on radio. So it's a technical thing that has never been solved.
Colin. It's like Colin.
Yes, I'm going to try that one next time I do a spot. Dirt here. Double up.
Andy.
Double up dirt.
No, I do think it was a good game. And it was nice to end the regular season with something like that on the line.
Yes, it was.
A division, playoff seeding, positioning. And the scriptwriters, I think, got it right.
They absolutely did.
Buffalo had what almost everybody, including this stupid radio show, at one point or another during the season deemed a not good year.
Mm-hmm.
They're now the 2 seed in the AFC.
They won 5 in a row, AFC West, or East, for the 4th year in a row.
Miami, kind of the darling of the National Football League. Oh, look at the offense. Oh, he's turned his career around. Oh, how about Tyreek Hill? Punt. That's the second half of the Miami Dolphins offense.
Not good, Bob.
With the division on line. Look at the scriptwriters. The scriptwriters got us Mike McCarthy against Green Bay.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill's return to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland against Houston in the Deshaun we didn't want him Watson sweepstakes. What else did we
You're
get?
missing the biggest one of all.
I am
think.
missing the biggest one.
Matthew Stafford going
Stafford
back to
going.
Detroit.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's your ball game
The
right
script
there.
writers really nailed it this
Packers,
year.
Cowboys.
Yeah, I mentioned.
Yeah, he got that one because you got McCarthy going against his old team. They nailed it. I will also say, look, I gambled on the Bills, so I was rooting hard for Buffalo last night. I thought the bet was dead, and then they totally redeemed themselves, and I appreciate that.
Oh, hold on. Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, fire away.
I have. You had a funny text yesterday, and I responded, I gambled on the Patriots. Your life could be worse.
I chose the Jags.
Even though I knew New England was probably going to lose that game as I watched it unfold in front of me, I never at any point except about the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter tell myself I've lost my bet.
Oh, you don't give up hope.
I mean, I in real time react like everybody else, like, God, this team sucks.
Yeah.
But like, I always hold out that hope that football might football.
Something crazy will happen.
And the one thing that you had as a Bills backer was it wasn't like Miami was up 28 points.
No, the Bills just couldn't stop doing dumb turnovers.
Right.
They'd get inside the 10-yard line and throw a pick, or then Allen would just randomly fumble. Like, what are we doing? Stop turning the football over.
Right.
And then he at least redeemed himself. But I will say I was also rooting for them because I would have been kind of bummed having to watch the same game two weeks in a row. Like, that would have been a little weird. Like, if Miami would have won last night, Buffalo would have just stayed in Miami, and we would have watched the same game.
Yeah.
And that was a fun game.
I
It
wouldn't
was
have
a
been
good
excited
game.
for it.
I wanted new matchups.
Yeah,
and
me
getting
too.
Miami going to Kansas City is way better. Buffalo gets to host Pittsburgh, so I get a snow football game in Buffalo that they're probably not going to lose.
Yeah, but Pittsburgh's weird, and sometimes you go, Pittsburgh's winning this game? How?
Their defense is legit. I know that.
Tomlin just doesn't lose.
And the Bills almost lost to Skylar Thompson at home in the wild card round last year. So I should, bite my tongue. But I'm excited that those were the matchups. I don't like when we get the repeat. I just watched this game 6 days ago. I don't want to watch it again.
Well, my gambling producer said this because I didn't I don't know why, but I had kind of overlooked the idea that if Buffalo lost, they'd just stay in Miami.
It'd be the 7 seed or whatever, or the 6 seed.
And he asked me the last time that had happened. And I couldn't rack my brain of any scenario. I think one example he gave me, because he's a Jets fan, he said the Jets and Bengals did this years ago. They played in the last game of the regular season. I think the Jets had to win or whatever it was, and then they played in the wild card weekend, and the Jets ended up beating Cincinnati. I think that was one of those Dalton years.
Yeah.
But he couldn't think of another example outside of his own team, and I can't either. You say you don't want to see it happen. Have we seen it happen?
I don't know, but that's part of the reason I don't want to see it happen. I just think that's hard to play the team 2 weeks in a row. It's hard enough to play a team twice in one season, and then if you face them again a third time in the playoffs. But that becomes like a baseball series. All right, game one's over. Time for game two.
Right.
Like, football's not supposed to be that way. It's really hard to beat a team twice in a season, let alone back-to-back weeks. So then you have that dynamic on top of it. And I just think the storylines are better. Like, I didn't want to see. I'm excited to watch Kansas City's run this year because this is the first time they've looked vulnerable, if you will, like in a Mahomes season where they're eventually going to probably have to go on the road. And I didn't want them to get Pittsburgh right out of the gate. Not that they couldn't lose to Pittsburgh. We just went over that. They got a good defense. I wanted them to get a better matchup. And I think Miami, Kansas City, it's a great way to start the wild card playoffs.
So then the underlying theme of that game is the first ever stream only game.
Yeah, Peacock.
They're on the Peacock.
The Cock Network.
So is there going to be a revelation about how many people actually watch that game, or is there going to be monumental bitching and moaning about an audience looking for it and not being able to
The
find
latter.
it?
So okay,
latter.
but I have a question.
I'm curious at this point. I mean,
Sure.
we've had streaming services long enough. There's enough sporting events that have been on it. Now, this is the biggest stage for a stream-only event, I would argue, in American sports.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, but Prime Video had an increase in viewership despite all the
Exactly.
crappy games we got with Michaels and Herbie. I don't know, man. It's 2024. I just find myself, it's hard for me to believe that a lot of America this weekend is going to go, well, where's the game? I can't find the game. Like, they're going to talk about this all week in Kansas City. Hey, we're on the Peacock. Hey, we're on the internet has Selena Gomez leaning into Taylor Swift at the Golden Globes last night. And everybody's response was, that's Selena telling Taylor she can only watch Travis Kelce on the Peacock Network.
I mean, somebody had a great tweet saying this is brilliance by the NFL. How do you grow Peacock? You put the Kansas City Chiefs on,
Yeah.
and you make the Swifties buy Peacock.
Oh, they're all going to buy it.
They're all
It was
going to
either
buy it.
that one or the Cowboys-Packers game. One of those two
Like
was
you throw
going on.
Browns Texans on Peacock, you're not getting a lot of new subscribers.
Can I respond with what I think the Peacock game should have been versus what it is? I am dumbfounded. Outside of you saying the city, I'm dumbfounded why Bucks Eagles is Monday Night Football standalone.
Yeah, that game sucks.
You need to switch the Peacock game and the Monday night game, because if there's a game I don't want to find, it's Eagles Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's I think the two games that I'm least excited for, it's a two-way tie.
Oh,
Between-
you have two games you're not excited
I mean,
for?
I'm going to watch
I
all
only
of
have
them.
one I don't like.
I'm very excited
And
for
it's
all
that
of them.
game.
That one is definitely in the mix. And then maybe I'm discounting them too much. I have gambled on them a few times late in the year. They're playing better football. I will grant you all of that. I just have a hard time seeing Pittsburgh going into Buffalo and winning. And so that one's a tie with me with Philly and Philly.
I think you're hoping for some weather, a snow game to kind of make
low
it
scoring, ugly.
interesting
Could
there.
happen.
Buffalo is very capable of being a dumb team, though.
They're a
and
10-point
Pittsburgh-
favorite. That's a double-digit spread.
I know, but how confident are you going to be laying those points against Mike Tomlin?
Not that confident. I already jumped on a bet last night.
Really?
I did.
Oh.
Quick trigger bet. Boop, boop, boop.
Which one was it?
Packers were catching 7.5. It was
Seven
at 7.
is a big number.
I waited and I looked last night. I was scrolling through some stuff. It was up to 7.5, and I thought, dude, you're giving me a touchdown, and I
Give me that
plus
hook.
a touchdown. I'm taking that
Give me
hook.
that hook.
All over it.
They played pretty well against Chicago.
They did. My Bears were a playoff contending team late in the season,
Wow.
and they dominated them. I mean, that was an impressive win.
Fields was not good.
Hey, what are you talking about? Efficient, no turnovers.
How many yards?
It doesn't matter.
110.
Like completed 70% of his passes. What do you want from him? Okay, his coach sucks. It's not all on him.
You're not wrong there. Probably going to fire him. We got a Black Monday here.
Black Monday, we're off and rolling there too.
We've got a natty. We've got the playoff matchups to dive into. Some games that
Hey,
we
the
haven't
Blazers
talked about
won
here.
on the road.
We will not. I don't have Blazers on my show sheet.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
It's a 12 o'clock tip. I don't even know.
Congrats on not losing by 30. I appreciate you not losing by 30. That's great.
Yes,
There you go.
Good one.
The
Hit
Nets.
20 of 38 threes.
The Nets are awful.
Blind squirrels find nuts once a month, and the Blazers are that way. They're going to have one game a month where they get hot and they blow somebody out, and they need to score 140 points to win a game.
We got two guests on the national championship game, and so, of course, we will dive into that. So it's a loaded show. There's a lot to get to. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out. Let's get it going on this Monday. Dirt and
token. Teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. 6:17 on Portland Sports Leader. Good morning. Happy Monday. We have a lot of football to get to today. We've got two guests. We got a back-to-back ticker stop, a half hour of the national championship.
Sure glad we play that game on a Monday night. Well done, college football.
Yeah, why play on a Saturday, right?
Well, because the sport's not playing on Saturdays in the regular season. We always play it on Monday night, so you got to keep the traditions alive.
Danny O'Neill, who co-hosts the Who Say... Wait, what is it? It's the
Say Who Say Pod?
Who Say Pod with our good buddy Christian Capel. He's going to join us at 7:30 for the Washington side, and then Clayton Safey covers Michigan is going to join us at 7:45. So we will have a thorough dive in to tonight's national championship game. I just saw our buddy Josh Pate admit that he had a dream with Kalen DeBoer in it, and so now he's wondering if he should change his national championship game pick.
Oh, did he pick against the Huskies again?
Yes, he did.
He had picked against both teams all season. He has not picked Michigan or Washington to win a game because he only picks big games, obviously, and so he had to break that streak for one of them.
Conley's SP Plus model has this game as a double-digit win for Michigan.
Holy hell!
Yeah, it's 33.5 to 21 and like 0.2.
Have you fools not learned your lesson yet?
Well, we'll talk about it. We have a lot to talk about, and where we ultimately land today, the day of the game itself. Dirt, I love that you kind of leaned into the situation and you wore your team sweatshirt today.
I know what you're talking about. It's basketball season. Big sweep in the Washington State over the weekend.
How about that, huh?
Suck it, Cougs!
Yeah.
You like that? Take that L.
We took two of them. We got swept.
Washington hasn't beaten Oregon in a sporting event in 2024, so I don't know what you're talking about, man. Quit looking in the past. There's a reason your car has a windshield. Stop looking through the rearview mirror.
Oregon State's competitive, though, Sprague. I love being competitive and losing. It's fun.
How bad was the Husky game? Did it get ugly?
They hung with the Huskies,
right,
but the Huskies had not won a conference game yet.
Yeah, they were rolling through. That's because they played the mighty Oregon Ducks. That's one of the reasons.
We're on to Seattle. Week 18.
Boom.
It's got to be the most confusing. How do I feel about this game and this matchup? What were we ultimately rooting for yesterday? Let's try to remove Sprague in the line, okay? We've done enough talk about our gambling. What were we rooting for yesterday?
Ironically, I ended up rooting against one of the teams that I bet on. They're so stupid. I wanted them to lose. And I was so mad at myself for gambling on the game that I was okay with the outcome. Like, suck it, Jacksonville. What are we doing? That was an embarrassing performance. Division title on the line, playoff spot on the line. Defensively, you can't get a stopping it. You get torched by Ryan Tannehill. I know Henry went off too. But like, what are we doing, man? Like, your season is on the line. And they were embarrassing. Trevor Lawrence is missing open guys, making a terrible throw on 4th down with a chance to extend the game in a one-possession spot.
Give the guy a chance to catch the ball.
I ended up that, so I actually went opposite. I gambled on Jacksonville, and I got so angry during that game. I just thought, you know what, screw them. I'm rooting. That was one of the things I was rooting for.
Swag, anything you were rooting for yesterday in old Week 18 NFL football?
I was rooting for Buffalo. I was glad they got that.
Why were you rooting for Buffalo? Miami also is a story of failure, largely since the 70s. So why were you rooting? Why did you find yourself rooting for Buffalo?
I think just everything that they've put into it, I think that team has tried to do it. I think there haven't been knee-jerk reactions. They've tried to build it up from. They gave Josh Allen lots of time. Nobody's like after one season or one game, they're freaking out or anything. They've had some attrition over the years, certainly, and they're not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination, but there is enough talent and enough experience on that roster to not start the season the way they had. So, and I think that they can, if you want a different team in there, if you're looking for somebody that can give the Ravens a game, the Chiefs a game, they're certainly a team that has the potential to do that. I think the playoffs will be better with them in it than if they weren't.
See, I totally agree with that. I like that take. Like having them in it,
it's good.
It's great because you don't want to I don't want to watch Bills fans be heartbroken. They've been heartbroken enough in their lives.
Yeah.
But the idea that they could win the AFC or lose to get Pittsburgh, like I think both those scenarios are real.
Yeah.
I really do.
And beauty of the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, and I give them a lot of credit. I was wondering yesterday, when you win the division title on the road and solidify a playoff spot, did their coach get in that locker room, bring everybody together and say, this is Al-Qaeda? You know what I mean? This is what I was talking about.
I think he did.
They're undefeated since the terrorist comment leaked.
Sometimes you need controversy to bring your locker room together.
That's the controversy
like
they needed.
Supporting Al-Qaeda and being pro 9/11, and it brought the Buffalo Bills together, and they're now circling the wagons like never before.
I thought I nailed zig or zag. I think that about myself every week, but I thought it was especially really good because what was one of the big takeaways from that Sunday Night Football game? Go read the internet and just type Tua. And you yourself try to sort out if you think Miami Dolphin fans are ready to give him a contract extension.
Yeah, the tough part there is that I feel like how many fan bases are in that spot? Like just week in and week
More
out,
than
year in
half
and year
the
out.
league.
Well, I would say 90% of the league. I'd say the only fan bases that aren't, I mean, how many would you say aren't there? Like, don't question or even doubt their guy. We have a franchise quarterback, zero concerns whatsoever.
Yeah, Philly's interesting. Philly is like conflicted now. Are we blaming Sirianni? Is this Jalen Hurts' fault? I don't know what that performance was against the Giants.
I mean, that was one of the things I was actually rooting for, too. I was rooting for the Giants.
I thought that was hilarious. I was rooting, too, for the Giants.
The Eagles were stupid for playing everybody. Like, they have been mentally ground down over the last month. A brutal schedule. They haven't been playing good. Give your team a bye. You had nothing to play. I mean, the Cowboys are not losing to Washington. We know it's not going to happen. Like, I would have rather seen them give everybody a rest, and now A.J. Brown goes down, and Jalen Hurts' fingers pointing in like 13 different directions. Congratulations, Philly. Well done. Let's see what you do on the road. I would say Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. I mean, I think there's even Charger fans that question Herbert. Like, how many other fan bases are sold on their guy?
Well, Charger fans aren't real.
No, they don't exist. Most of them are in the state of Oregon.
But Cincinnati probably thinks they have two now because, you know, Jake Browning's now one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the National Football League, according to Jake Browning.
I mean, he's better than Bailey Zappi. I'll give him that.
Hell of a lot better than Bailey Zappi.
Better than Trevor Seaman. Trevor Seaman had a rough day, too.
Trevor Seaman beat my team. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know if he really beat your team. He was on a team that beat your team.
He's getting a Jimmy G treatment here today. He gets the win, so let's
there you go.
throw
Having fun in the snow up there.
God. I thought that was perfect for them to win that game, and then I'm like, okay, well, they're just not going to do anything against the Jets, are they?
Didn't win one for the Gipper. That was not the mentality in New England.
A lot of wins yesterday and a lot of like moral losses too, you know, just real defeating, like, damn it.
There was a handful of those. Like, I would jokingly support Justin Fields. Not jokingly, I actually really like him, and I'm rooting for him to succeed. That was a tough one for Chicago.
That was brutal.
Like, you go from Aaron Rodgers dominating you for however many years it was, Favre dominating you for however many years it was, to the I'm your daddy quote last year. You finally get a change of quarterback. Jordan Love is in. You're hopeful going into the season with Justin Fields. He's the dark horse MVP candidate. Oopsies, a lot of bets lost on that one. But at least you have a glimmer of hope. Like, Green Bay finally doesn't have a franchise quarterback. Finally, there's an opportunity to win the division. And there goes Green Bay. I know they didn't win the division, but they beat Chicago twice and their season. And you had a chance to knock them out of the playoffs, and you still couldn't do it. And now it's like, hello, darkness, my old friend. This is my future for the next 10 years.
I was texting with some people yesterday, and I have a question to ask you because I could not answer it. I don't know what you do to fix Jacksonville, who, by the way, they moved to 8-3 at one point this year. Their percentage chances to win their division was 99%. And they finished 1-5. And that win came from C.J. Beathard, not from Trevor Lawrence, the number one pick in the draft.
Yes.
Lawrence had one pick that definitely wasn't his fault from Evan Ingram. Other than that, he was atrocious. He had Calvin Ridley deep late.
Yep.
Could have separated everything, and he overthrew him. 4th down, 4th and 2. He overthrows his receiver by 10 yards. If you watch the replay where they show the Jags sidelines, there is a lineman who puts his hand on his head, and you just read his lips like, what are we doing? And I don't know what the fix is in Jacksonville, or if you just chuck it up and say, well, they just lost some momentum. That's all it is, and then you run this thing back. I'm not the biggest Peterson guy, and I totally think it's fair given – we've seen careers morph. I'm not confident Trevor Lawrence is coming back and going to show that he's top blank quarterback in the National Football League. He ended on such a high last year. Man, a dud of an end to a year for him.
Really was, after going from the worst team in the NFL, a 1-win team, to winning the division a year ago. It felt like things were set up for you to go on a bit of a run here. Like, you got your young quarterback, rookie contract. They added Calvin Ridley. It felt like all the momentum was going in the right direction, and they just tailspun at the end of the season. That's a really complicated question. I think for the third-year quarterback, you're going to give him time. There's no knee-jerk reactions that need to take place there. Defensively, they were not very good this year. And the other reality that we do need to point out is that he was very banged up late in the season. You mentioned he missed a game and beat the Panthers a couple weeks ago or last week, whenever that was. But he was out. He got hurt in the Cincinnati game. I can't remember if that was a knee or an ankle, whatever it was. He got the concussion. Like, he was super banged up late in the year. So I think if you're a Jags fan, that's what you try and tell yourself. But last year, they were decent defensively. This year, they were bottom quarter of the league in a lot of different categories. And so you got to get better there. It takes a team. But no doubt, a very disappointing season and a really disappointing ending, because that was a game where Tennessee had nothing to play for. Maybe their head coach's future, but outside of that, I mean, they're just playing for pride, and they beat you up physically at the line of scrimmage.
I want to get to a local story. We've got Black Monday to get to. I want to read one final stat. I want to know what your guys' thought is hearing this. This may be one of the most depressing things I've ever heard in my entire life involving the National Football League. Are you ready?
Fire away.
The Carolina Panthers didn't lead for a single second in the fourth quarter of any game the entire year. Their 2 wins came on field goals as time expired. They never actually led at any one point in the fourth quarter of any of their 17 games. That is the most depressing stat I've maybe ever heard in my life. And I watched 2 teams in my lifetime go 0-16.
If I'm one of the few season ticket holders there in Charlotte, that's good information to know, because I'm leaving at the end of the third quarter.
Just get out of there.
I'm beating some traffic. I am getting home in time. If it's the early game, I'm getting home in front of my TV for the afternoon games.
How did he not accidentally lead at one point?
That's very valuable information right there.
At least the silver lining in all of that, though, you have that bad of a season, you get the number 1 overall pick. Wait. Could you imagine? Like, I don't know. It's fun to debate what the Bears are going to do. Could you imagine?
I don't think it's a debate.
If Caleb Williams turns out to be the Caleb Williams that some thinks he will, like, right. I'm not there, but if he ends up being like an MVP kind of Hall of Fame player, and you traded all of that for Bryce Young, that might go down, depending on what happens in the next 2 years of Bryce Young. Not very hopeful. That might go down as the worst trade in NFL history.
Russell Wilson trade still exists. Here is a hot take for you. Probably not a good idea to draft a 5'5" quarterback and then fire everybody around making that pick after 1 year.
Yes, not good.
Probably not a great situation. Let's get to Black Monday. We got a local story. We'll dive into some of the playoff matchups, and then we'll dive headfirst into the national championship game. Dirt and Sprague back with more, but first, Swag with a sports update.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Stanford's The Classic American Steakhouse has exactly what you've been craving. Visit them in Clackamas, Tanasbourne, or online at stanfords.com. First on the fan, a dramatic end to the NFL regular season resulted in the Buffalo Bills grabbing the number 2 seed in the AFC with a 21-14 win over the Dolphins. Gives the Bills a date with 7th-seeded Pittsburgh Sunday morning. In the NFC, the Packers handled the Bears 17-9. They take the last playoff spot in the NFC and will face the 2nd-seeded Cowboys, who demolished the Commanders 38-10. That game Sunday afternoon. The Green Bay win also ended the season for the Seahawks despite their comeback 21-20 win over the Cardinals. Super Wild Card Weekend will start Saturday. The 5th-seeded Browns taking on the 4th-seeded Texans. That'll be followed by the 3-6 matchup pitting the Dolphins and Chiefs in Kansas City. It's Black Monday for teams not making the playoffs already. The Falcons have let Arthur Smith go. This morning, Adam Schefter reports Ron Rivera has been relieved of his head coaching duties in Washington. One last college football game for the season will determine the national champion between the top 2 ranked and undefeated teams in the country. Michigan 4.5-point favorites over Washington. Kickoff just after 4:30 on 910 ESPN. Portland Blazers ended a 7-game road losing streak with a 134-127 overtime victory in Brooklyn Sunday. Anthony Simons leading the way with 38 points. Portland 20 of 38 from three-point range. Blazers will hang out in the Big Apple and then face the Knicks Tuesday night. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Mash the subscribe button and like us for live streaming video. And
Hold up. Baby, when we're crying, I get so excited.
this is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
on 1080 The Fan.
We've got some non-sports stories to get to today. One local one coming up, but I want to, it's Black Monday. By the way, very quickly, can I ask both you guys, I don't mean to get off on a tangent here. I know, Swag give me the eyes like, oh, well, here you go.
I digress.
You've heard me bitch about the Coach of the Year award. I kind of want to bitch about the Comeback Player of the Year award, too. These are two awards. I'm confused on how we gauge what these awards are. How is 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns in a division title and starting every game of a 17-game season not more impressive than a quarterback who's played like 5 games for a team with a really good defense? I've been dumbfounded by this, like Flacco's Comeback Player of the Year thing versus Baker Mayfield, who was given up on by the Panthers, who he beat yesterday to win a third straight division for the franchise in Tampa, and in one of the tougher spots, taking over Tom Brady.
Yes, he did. I don't really have a retort to that. As long as DeMar Hamlin doesn't win, I'm okay. Like, as long as it doesn't go to DeMar Hamlin, that's an unbelievable story. I love that we all have to say that. Like, yeah, obviously it's a great story, but come on. It should. Baker Mayfield has a great candidacy. If you would have told me, though, at the start of the year that Joe Flacco would be but playing in the playoffs as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and you would be viewing the team that he's playing on as a dark horse, probably would have slapped me in the face. And so if you go either of those guys.
What if I told you Baker goes to Tampa and they host a playoff game?
I would say, what's their record? Because it's the NFC South, so I'm not really surprised by that. Because I think, what did they win? 9 games this year? Did they get to 10 yesterday? How many did they win?
9 and 8.
9 and 8. So it's like,
But they were, I think they were 9 and 8 last year with Brady, weren't they?
I think they were below 500.
Or they were like 8-7-1. They had a weird year.
It was one of those random things. I don't want to take anything away from him. He has had an awesome season. I guess I wasn't one of the guys that gave up on Baker. Like, I looked at his situation, the end of Cleveland, he was incredibly banged up. He then had to go on to play for bad teams. He actually kind of breathed some life into the Rams a little bit last year, late in the season. And so he had a moment. I hadn't given up on him because I think he's the guy, if you have enough around him, you can find a way to win. And they did this year in Tampa. I'm not, you're splitting hairs though, I think, with Flacco or for Mayfield.
It is Black Monday in the National Football League. We've got firings already. Arthur Smith, the first to be fired. Well, not technically, but the first in the off-season of dealings to be fired. Obviously, Carolina moved on from their head coach. Atlanta fired Arthur Smith. Bye-bye. Another playoff-less year. They got absolutely destroyed by the Saints after going up 14-7. He was caught basically telling Dennis Allen that's bull because the Saints were in victory formation, but they ran a play to get a guy a touchdown.
Yes, they did.
So they ran the score up. Jameis defended his coach and said it was all our fault. We chose to do it. It wasn't coach's decision. Arthur Smith is gone. Ron Rivera is now gone. I woke up early this morning to wash dishes, and I turned on Good Morning Football. They went live to Bill Belichick, and he said something he never says. I'm under contract, which to me screams, I dare you to fire me.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to pay me out? Go ahead. I'm not leaving. I got a lot of Leo, I'm not leaving energy from him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this season obviously went the way he wanted, but it also sounds like he's willing to give up GM status and just be the coach. And I don't know how New England fan feels about that. I listened to WEEI on the way in a little bit. They seemed very confused, but Belichick's presser this morning, he made a point to say, I'm under a contract. We don't know about Chicago yet with Eberflus. Other ones we're waiting for. I believe so far that is it. That's the updated list. It's not a huge one, but that's the updated list in the NFL.
Not huge. You could get some more in the playoffs depending on how wildcard weekend goes. Like if Dallas loses, I wouldn't be surprised if Jura gets angry and makes a move there.
No, Chicago's on the clock.
Yeah, if Buffalo loses to Pittsburgh, right? Like maybe that's a move you make. Back-to-back disappointing postseason performances. So there could be a few more that join them. I'm really glad that Arthur Smith got fired. Like screw that guy.
He's terrible.
He's a terrible coach. He's from a rich family. Like he's a nepotism kid. Like I want nothing to do with Arthur Smith.
What is coming from a rich family have anything to do with football?
Dude, that guy has been handed everything in his entire life. Okay, give me a break. He's got all the connections. His family like owns FedEx. He's worth billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like get the hell out of here. You got Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. You don't use any of them. You're an idiot. You're a terrible football coach. Don't go anywhere near my offense. I'm glad that he got fired. I've always liked Ron Rivera, but it was time. Like that thing had played itself out.
He hasn't been good for a long time.
No, it's been a long time. I think the thing with New England, if you're Bill, he's taking the right stand. Like he's just not going to walk away. He's not going to say, "Here, take your money. I'm gone." They have the 3rd overall pick too, and so I don't know what's going to happen. The first 2 picks, it goes Chicago and then Washington. Chicago may or may not take a quarterback. If they trade the picks, somebody there will take a quarterback. Washington will definitely take a quarterback, but you got a chance to get maybe the number 3 QB on the board, kind of start over. If I'm New England, I want a fresh start, and I would find a new home for Bill Belichick. I don't know where that is, but he's taking the right stance, at least as of now.
I think that's an easier thing said than done, though, right? If Belichick tells you, I'll just coach. You go get me a guy. We'll work together. He can be the personnel person. I don't know if that's easy to say, okay, I'm moving on from you anyway. We sucked.
Yeah, I would ask, who's your offensive coordinator, and do I trust you to cultivate successful offensive schemes around your new quarterback, because that's been the black eye of his last couple of years.
I'd argue there was a lot of black eyes even with Brady, where you're like, offensively, they got by because Brady was awesome, and they'd find these little guys that nobody wanted.
And they were elite defensively, and so it was enough to make up for it.
Yeah, so you didn't really focus on it as much, but I always wondered, like, pre-Randy Moss and post-Randy Moss, why did you not go get another Randy Moss? And Gronk is awesome, but there was never that kind of next-level guy, right? It was always Welkers or Amendolas or Edelmans, and so we'll see what they do there. The Raiders, I think, are going to hire Pierce. It's the cheapest move for them, and they don't have money.
That sounds like a Raiders move.
They won with Pierce.
They did.
They like him over there.
Freddie Kitchens worked out great. It's always good to hire the interim guy.
Well, remember, what's his nuts? We
Hired Jim Tom Sula.
No, we were saying they should have hired Bisaccia.
Bisaccia, yeah.
And then Green Bay special teams was kind of questionable this year. And then you find out he's coaching that year, and you go, oh.
Yeah, that's why you don't overreact to like a 5-game sample size.
Is there a job that stands apart from all these others? By the way, I think Chicago's drafting a quarterback. And you say New England should just go QB3.
Well,
Who is QB3?
It's a great question,
Is
Bob.
it Jaden Daniels? Is it Michael Penix Jr.? Who is it? I don't know who it is at this point.
Let's see.
They might be screwed out
I
of
think
that.
Chicago has the most assets in terms if you want to come in and overhaul it if you're a coach, or if you like some of the pieces that are in place, you have the ability to significantly strengthen the depth of your roster if you believe you can win with Fields and some of the guys that are there. So I think there's the most to work with there.
I'm stunned if they'd bring that back. I think it's all. I mean, I think they made their. I said this on Friday. It's kind of organization malpractice if you're waiting on how he's going to play against Green Bay.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
No, you have to know what you're doing weeks and weeks ago when you track Carolina as the number one team and the number one pick. I will be stunned today if Chicago sticks with Eberflus and Fields. I will.
I would still take the Charger job over any others, despite the organizational incompetence and their financial situation. But it's because they, I think, other than all these other teams, have answered the one question that's the hardest question to answer in the NFL. They have a franchise quarterback. Now, you can tell me you think Caleb Williams will turn into that, and that's why the Chicago job, if it opens up, would be better. And Swag's not wrong. They got a lot of capital to work with, ton of cap space. You're going to have a lot of draft picks. You can trade Fields if you move on for him, probably for something, and get another pick out of him. But it's not a guarantee that Caleb Williams is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Herbert has already proven that. And so you got to navigate the next couple of years. But the Chargers also have the number 5 overall pick, so that'll help. If you hit on that, you got a cheaper guy on a rookie contract. You can kind of rebuild from there. I think the Charger job is still the best one available.
You think it's better than Washington?
Absolutely, I do.
Why do you say it like that?
Because they have a franchise quarterback. Who's the Commanders' quarterback?
Well, that's the thing. They have the second pick.
Okay,
so
is
you go
Drake
get a
May
Drake
going to
May.
be better than Justin Herbert?
I don't know, but he's going to have some targets.
I'm
They
not
got some good
saying it
weapons
won't.
there.
I think Drake May is better than Caleb Williams. I'm high on him, but it's also a complete roll of the dice if you're a head coach. And if that guy doesn't work out, you as a head coach, you're tied together at the hip. So if you take that job, let's say you're out, let's say Jim Harbaugh's out for the Charger job and the Washington job, and he chooses Washington. However that quarterback plays, that's how your job status will be decided in 4 years.
I think the Charger job's done. That's why I'm not really counting it in my brain, because I think Harbaugh's gone.
Yeah.
I think if Michigan wins tonight, well, if Michigan wins or loses, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think he's done tonight. I think he's going to the Chargers. I think that's a done deal. They just publicly can't do it because of the Rooney Rule.
Yeah, the quarterbacks after, by the way, I was just looking at the PFF draft board. It does go Jaden Daniels 3, Bo Nix 4, Michael Penix 5. So
They
those
still have Bo above Penix.
They do. I don't know if this is an old article or not. I can't see.
That's fine.
This is from December 20th, so before the playoff game at least.
Not
But
an easy spot to be in.
those are the 3 guys you're choosing from.
I did see people saying Herbert might get himself a nice receiver here with all these quarterbacks if they go bam, 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 and then Arizona's right there. And I'm like, Arizona's taking Marvin Harrison Jr.
They definitely are, but you got the chance maybe to go get another guy. Although drafting a first-round wide receiver did not work out well for you last year.
They need Brock Bowers. They need to take Bowers. I don't know if he's going to be there when
Bowers
they pick.
would be a great pick. for
Bowers fits perfectly to what they're trying to do.
them. We didn't pay attention to the Chargers much at the end, and we'll go here, but I thought Johnston, he had obviously a pivotal drop in a big game. I thought Johnston kind of had some stuff at the end of the year that maybe build on. Remember Devontae Adams? Everybody forgets Devontae Adams, his first year or two in Green Bay, he had a little bit of the dropsies. He wasn't looked at as like this done, like Donald Driver was still there. And then he emerged eventually. Let these guys, work it out a little bit. And I'm not ready to give up on Johnston yet, but
fair.
I agree with Swag. I think Browers would be a great pick with Herbert.
Hard to see him going before number 5.
Yeah.
With how much teams need quarterbacks, Arizona sounds like it's going to keep Murray and draft a wide receiver at 4 or move down. I guess you could do that as well. If Bowers is there, I'm with you. You take him.
Coming up next, local nightmare fuel. Next on The Fan.
The Herd with Colin. This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, we'll get to some playoff. I want to talk about the playoff matchups that we have, and then we'll dive fully into the championship game. Okay? We got a natty tonight.
We do.
Shout out Cliff Harris. Nightmare fuel for me, and I'm assuming anybody else. Did you see the Alaska Airlines flight that had the door ripped off on it, and they had to be diverted back to Portland? Did you see this story?
I did see that. Now, was it a door or just like a random panel? Because I didn't think it was a door.
I believe it's a panel with a door.
Is it like the door over the wing, like the emergency push that out and the slide falls out if you need it?
I did not see the wing right directly under the area where it came off, but I'm pretty confident in saying it was a
We're flying
door.
Alaska to the Bay Area this week. Thanks, guys.
Well, I'm an Alaska card-carrying member.
Yes, I am too.
I will tell you that first and foremost. I also, this is my nightmare. We had a listener on the flight.
And I had a listener on the flight.
I almost got him on the show because I had a lot of questions to ask, and so I saw them post on Instagram. And so I will not reveal the name because I did not ask for permission to share some of this publicly,
Right.
so I will keep the name out of this. But he was on the flight, and he was sitting across the aisle that was there that got sucked out.
I would pee my pants in 4 seconds.
In the video he posted, or he reposted, the guy sitting in the row is still in his seat, and the area 2 seats to his left is gone. He's sitting there, and he's just got a mask on, and you see like everything.
Yep.
And he's just sitting there. And so I naturally responded. I said, man, like, what was this like? This is a nightmare for me. And I don't like flying. He said it was insane. Everybody had nerves of steel on the flight. It was so quiet. All people kept thinking was, just land, just land. I asked when it happened. He said right when they reached altitude, it just blew off.
Just flew off.
Flew off. I said, was anybody sitting in the seat? He said, no. We were told 2 people missed the flight. We're supposed to be sitting in those seats.
What?
Do you believe in divine intervention? Because I do.
Yeah, you think you go flying out of that? I mean, you're
Yes.
you're
Yes.
donezo.
Yeah, I think you're sucked right out. I think the guy that I saw in the video, I believe I read that part of his shirt ripped off. It was so strong. And he was buckled in, and he was 2 seats to the right.
Oh my God, I would have an absolute heart attack if you're sitting that close. It would also be terrifying if you were further away from it too, and you just hear like the sound and you hear the air coming into the plane. The oxygen mask comes down. You're trying to figure out what the hell happened.
See, that's when you freak out. When the masks drop,
Yes,
and
drop.
you hear that, whatever that.
You just hear the motor outside the plane. Absolutely terrifying. There was a stat that somebody was trying to applaud a couple of days ago that I saw. I think it's been like, everybody knock on wood simultaneously here. I think it's been legitimately like 15 years since we've had a commercial airline in the United States go down. And somebody had like the tweet graph of like 2009, 2010, and all the years with a 0 next to it. And I was thinking about that the other day of, does that make you feel confident or does that make you feel like we're due?
Yeah.
And then this story happens where a door flies off. But kudos to everybody for being safe and landing the plane okay.
Well, most plane crashes are from those little Cessnas, those tiny planes that are manned by one person, or there's 3 people or whatever. And it's always heartbreaking to see those headlines.
They're horrible.
I am very scared of flying.
Yes.
And I have a theory on this, and I'll tell you my theory, because I was talking about this with my brother-in-law, who's also an Alaska guy. He's super pro Alaska, and because me and my sister-in-law we were at an event together, and I was like, I would be asking for like 500,000 miles. And she's like, I'd be asking for money. Oh, my arm hurts all of a sudden.
And ask for a stake in the company.
It doesn't sound like they handled this very well from a customer service standpoint. They offered him $1,500 of trade, and that was kind of it.
I need more than that.
There's funny little tidbits that have trickled out. They found the door.
It was in a backyard, wasn't it?
It was in Cedar Hills. It was right in your area, Swag.
Lord.
The door landed in Cedar Hills, just down the street from St. V's. And they found a phone that was fully intact, still operational, and opened was an Alaska message that said, no charge for your service back.
So somebody's phone went flying out of the plane.
Somebody's phone got sucked out. I guess throughout when they were trying to land back. Another thing that the person said is you could hear like napkins and little bags and like things were just being sucked out the whole time.
That's terrifying.
Because you're going to land and whatnot. But this is my theory on this. Whenever I hear of a plane crash, I think that means it's safest to fly now because everybody's on edge. Like, we can't have this happen to us. I think, and they've already, specified with these Boeing 737 MAX 9s, I think it's a perfect time to fly.
It's a good time.
That's my theory.
They pulled. There was a handful of them they had to pull, right? So there was like a few of these out there.
The Dreamliner, their newer ones.
I'm not sure. I don't know what it's called.
No, I will tell you as a Alaska card carrying member, one of my critiques is I don't think their planes are as nice as Delta's. I think Delta's the best airline. If I could do a credit card again, it'd probably be that.
I don't disagree with that take.
I love me some Alaska, but like I do feel like some of their planes are kind of old. And I had this theory weeks ago, told my brother-in-law, he poo-pooed it, and then the door flew off.
Now you're missing a door.
Who was right?
Yeah, I feel like the Alaska argument has always been the companion fare is solid. I'm not sure what Delta offers you. Probably something similar, but the companion fare is good. And then there was like the only way to get to Hawaii. That was the other selling point. And now the Hawaiian Airlines and the merger and all that stuff went down. So that argument is a little out. By the way, shout out, I was looking through the article. It was a teacher in Portland named Bob. That's who the plane or the door landed in his backyard. There's some dude named Bob. You imagine hearing that? You're like out cooking dinner or whatever. Just in your backyard. What the hell was that?
Well, it happened at night, so you probably woke up in the morning, backyard, you're just an airplane door.
You definitely hear
no,
that.
you
You
heard
100% wake up and you are
probably
terrified.
thought a car hit a tree in your
Yes.
backyard or something.
That has to be
if that's
such a loud
falling
thud.
from, and I mean, one, how heavy is that door? Two, falling from what?
16,000. The listener said they got to 16,000
Yeah,
when it happened.
that's coming with some
Dude.
speed.
You are so. Can you imagine if that
He's
goes
lucky
through
it didn't
your
hit the
roof?
house.
How
when it
did that
came
not
through.
hit a building or a house?
Or a person walking?
You just imagine you're just sleeping peacefully. It's a nice little Saturday night, or we're just laying in bed, and here comes a plane door through your house.
How did Steve die? An airplane door just fell on him.
Dude, those are terrifying. I think about those sometimes because you'll hear those like crazy stories of like a tree falling over when you're driving on the highway and just like landing on top of your car as you're driving, of like, what a terrible way to go.
Yeah.
Just wrong place, wrong time. Here comes a tree. If you're 4 seconds quicker, 5 seconds slower, maybe you can stop or you're past. Like that is just the worst luck possible. This would take the cake. A plane door landing on top of you while you sleep.
I can't even try to pretend how I would be feeling on that flight having witnessed that.
Dude, I'd be
traumatized.
so terrified.
It's probably why when I said, hey, do you want to come on Monday? Because I'd love to ask you some more. He didn't respond.
How long would it take you to fly again?
I'd get back on.
You would get back on?
You know,
I couldn't do it.
I'm terrified of flying, dude. It's the quickest, most convenient way to do it. There's not a debate, and I don't want to do road trips.
I'll go to Sun River next year for vacation.
How exciting.
I'm going to drive out there and go play some golf.
We've got another story, non-sports related. I don't know if Dirt saw it or is going to get to it. Man, it had to make every guy in America feel really good about themselves. Do you know what I'm teasing?
I have no clue what you're teasing.
Oh, Bass Pro Shops.
What happened to Bass Pro Shops?
Oh, my God. Do I need to do that story, too?
I didn't see that story. Do I need to Google Bass Pro Shop? What did I miss this weekend?
Bass Pro Shop wiener is what I would Google. And I
Somebody
would
took their ween out at a Bass Pro Shop?
swam in the salmon tank.
Nice!
And there's nothing there.
As in
Yeah.
genitalia or fish?
Yeah.
Both?
Yes. There's fish.
Empty pool?
There's definitely a fish. I see fish.
Yeah, there's a naked guy. Oh, there's not a lot there, is there? No.
It made every guy in America smile that saw that story. Like, oh, well, at least it's not me.
I'm not that guy.
Not that guy.
I mean, the water's got to be cold, though, right?
Yes.
It's got to be
got
chilly.
salmon in it.
It's not heated.
Loaded second hour. We start with the playoff matchups in the NFL, and then we'll get into the college football playoff national championship game, Washington, Michigan. Hour 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
Cowherd. Weekdays 9 to noon. 1080 The Fan. Let's get the playoff party started.
Middle of the field, there's a sideline toss, and the ball's loose on the ground. It's a fumble. It's recovered by the Texans, and they're off to the AFC playoffs. A stunning win on the road, led by the rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com. Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at WarrenAllen.com.
Wild Card Week with Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
Our record is now 0-0 in the playoffs, so we just needed our opportunity. We got it.
The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan. The Odyssey app. Odyssey. An Odyssey station.
What's going on, everybody?
Just a nice little, having a fun time. Odyssey. If you missed the first hour of the show, you can always catch it at our Service Patriots podcast section at 1080thefan.com. You can also check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. Boom. And you can reach the show at the Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them for more information at vancouverford.com. Along with the youtube.com/1080 the fan page. We are live on YouTube, and the comment section is always live right there as well. We got 2 ticker stops today, a half hour of ticker. We've got Clayton Safey, who covers Michigan at 7:45, Danny O'Neill, who covers Washington, and he's, I believe, a Washington alum, so he'll join us at 7:30. Big national championship game tonight.
That it is, Bob.
We didn't do a poll question. I was disappointed. I might put it up during the show. Which fan base is more on edge today, Ohio State or Oregon?
Okay.
Just because, we got 2 fan bases that are also going to be impacted if a team wins.
We do. I would say probably Oregon in that category. Ohio State at least has a national championship within the last 10 years that they can hang their hat on and say, well, it took you long enough, Michigan, so they got that going for them. My team still got a goose egg there.
We will talk about that game coming up at 7:15. I want to start the second hour with the playoff matchups as we move on from a door ripping off an airplane to how you feeling about these games.
I can't wait.
Houston and Indy, my other brother-in-law is a Colts fan, and I bet the over. And so, Houston scored, and I started going crazy, and then I realized he was sitting right in front of me, and I'm like, I'm rooting for points.
You can score too. I'm okay with that.
I wanted you to score.
Go score another touchdown. How bad? Who was the dude who dropped the ball for Indy on 4th down? God, but you're
Goodson?
not. Yeah, you're not going to forget that play.
Why
for
are
a
we
long
throwing
time.
to a guy that hadn't touched the ball?
I mean, that's a valid question that deserves an answer. Also, a little bit behind him. Some of that is on Minshew.
Yeah.
Wouldn't put right in the breadbasket, if you will. But man, you're just going to remember that face and the ball hitting his hands because you pick up a first down there, maybe you score.
So our matchups are Cleveland at Houston. These are the Saturday games. Cleveland-Houston is the first game on NBC at 1:30. And then that's followed by the Cock game between Dolphins and Chiefs. It's 5 o'clock on the Peacock Network. Sunday, we get Steelers-Bills early, up and at 'em at 10 a.m. And the Packers go to Dallas against Mike McCarthy, their former coach, at 1:30. And then Rams-Lions close it out on Sunday Night Football. Waiting all day for Sunday night.
And then you get the boring game on Monday that nobody wants to watch.
Unbelievable that they got that game. And my gambling producer said, why is it Eagles-Bucks? This is bull. And he goes, it's Philly, man. I'm like, who cares? Who cares what city it is? Give me the better teams.
I think even we had one of our P1s texting earlier who's a Bucks fan. He said he has a friend who was an Eagles fan, and they were both texting back and forth, and the matchup was that you knew that's who you were going to play, and neither of them can find a reason why their team is going to win. Like, that's the feeling going in. Philly is an absolute turmoil. Talk about doors falling from the sky. The Eagles are a plane falling from the sky. They've been terrible for basically 2 months. Their quarterback's hurt. Their best wide receiver's hurt. They're just disheveled. And the Bucks, it's like, yeah, you made the playoffs. You had a really good year that nobody expected. You also played in the worst division in football, or one of the worst divisions in football. So congratulations. That's one of those, like, does somebody really have to win this game? We're really going to get the Eagles, who are in a tailspin, or Baker Mayfield and the Bucks in the divisional round of the playoffs.
The Bucs struggled with the Panthers yesterday.
Yes, they did.
I know that because I gambled on them -5.
Yes, they did.
And I'm sweating it out like 9-0. And then the DJ Chark play happens where he should have scored a touchdown, but Winfield knocks the ball through the back of the end zone. Thankfully, that happened. Otherwise, the Bucs eke out like a 9-7 game.
Ugly.
Very ugly, but I'm also not going to point to Philly. It's probably the game I have least confidence in. It's already been bet up to 2.5. This opened at 1.5.
Yeah.
So people are just all in on the Eagles, just saying they're the better team. They'll figure this out. Be careful thinking that. The Philly was playing to win that game against the Giants, and they couldn't yesterday.
Yeah, they couldn't beat the Cardinals at home 2 weeks ago.
No.
What are we doing here?
I'm torn. I think the two games I'm most excited for are Browns-Texans and Rams-Lions. Do you have others? I mean, I'm excited for all. It's playoff football, so don't get me wrong here.
Interesting.
Those are the two games because I still have the zigzag thing of the Browns being the most dangerous wild card. And I think the Browns can get to the AFC title game.
Yeah, I could see it.
It would depend on the reseeding of upsets and whatnot.
I've fallen off that opinion. I'm not dying on that hill. You can entice me into that one.
And then Houston and Stroud. I mean, D'Amico Ryan's great story. It's a fantastic story. He's this year really good coach.
Yes.
And Stroud is everything that a lot of teams wish their quarterback was. And not many people thought he would do that. He had that bad Wonderlic score, and everybody made fun of it. It was stupid, didn't get it.
Yeah.
No, he's football smart. Look at that. 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 4,100 passing yards, and he wins against Indy. Do you have different games you're more excited for?
I do, actually.
Really?
I first want to say congratulations to the TV executives for getting it right. Like, I have no issues. I think kick times are a big decision to make in Wild Card Weekend. There's a lot of games that is now Super Wild Card Weekend. I will maintain the 7 seed, not really necessary. We should go back to the way it was, but we don't need to get into that. Steelers and Bills being the early game on Sunday after a full day of football is perfect. Maybe that's a tight game. Maybe Buffalo plays down a little bit. Maybe it's a blowout, but that's one that's kind of on the back burner for a lot of folks. I also think the same with the Monday night game. It's like you're exhausted after a long weekend. It's like, all right, whatever. Throw that game on Monday night. I don't care. I'm glad that Dolphins and Chiefs is prime time on Saturday night because that's one of the games I'm most excited for.
Yeah, but it's only on a streaming platform.
See, and I don't care about that.
No, I don't either. I
don't care. Like, I have Peacock.
This is still a narrative of like, are people going to be freaking out? And I don't know.
They will be. I'm sure they will.
How? It's
because
2024.
People are old. Have you met my parents?
I have met your parents.
There is zero chance in hell if I told my parents the game is on Peacock that they would know A, what that was, B, how you find it, and like how do apps work. There is zero chance they could figure that out.
See, I think we're getting this wrong. I think the demos are more suggesting that young people don't want to gravitate towards all these different streaming things. They're going to go to the Stream East thing and find it illegally. Yeah. I think older people, we need to give them more credit. I think they're more plugged in with the streaming apps.
I think you're off on that.
You think so?
I think you're off on that. Are old people good with streaming apps? There's a poll question for you. Look, I do think there's a lot of, like, we had a listener earlier when we were talking about this in the opening hour say, like, I'm dying on the hill of I'm not going to buy Peacock. I have too many streaming things. Peacock came in too late to the party. I'm not jumping in. It's another however many dollars a month.
We'll see how that goes this weekend.
Exactly. Now, I caved for 2 reasons. One, the golf on Peacock is like, if you like the Ryder Cup, an Open Championship, like whatever. They finally took my money there, and my team's going to be playing games on Peacock next year. Like, they're going to have football and basketball games on Peacock.
What is it, $6.99?
So I caved. I don't even know how much it is because I don't like looking at those numbers.
If you get the
Sign me up. I don't care.
Super fast modem internet hookup with Xfinity, they throw it in.
So I like it's fun watching the streaming games for me because the quality is so good. So I actually love the Kansas City Miami's on Peacock. As a proud Peacock card carrying member, let's go Cock. I'm excited for that one. I think that is a tie for the number 1 game of the weekend with Rams and Lions. I think those are the 2 premier games of this weekend for me.
How is Rams Lions? And look, people have fandom attached. This is a unique city. We have a lot of different fans that listen to the show. And some of them think from time to time we hate their team, even though we just like to make fun of teams when they deserve to be made fun of.
Yes.
And that includes our own teams, by the way.
Oh, yes.
How is Rams Lions not easily the best game of the week? Am I wrong on this? Or is it Dolphins Chiefs? Is it Packers Cowboys? I just feel like Rams Lions stands a little bit alone than all the other games.
I mean, I agree with the take, but I think it's a 1A, 1B maybe with Mahomes, but like, what's Kansas City going to look like in the playoffs? Some people just think it's business as usual. Here comes Kansas City. Like, I don't care how bad your receivers were this year. It's Mahomes in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm not picking against them. On the other side, Miami was the team, man. That was their year, and they have crumbled in the back half of the year. They got to figure out what they're doing with Tua.
Well,
Tyreek Hill's going back.
Can Mostert get healthy? How healthy is Tyreek Hill?
Well, they lost their pass rushers too. Chubb and Phillips went down.
So I think it's more. I think you're curious about that game. Can Miami put it back together? But that certainly, you're curious about the Chiefs. But that's one that you could see getting out of hand early in the third quarter if Miami just can't put it together and doesn't have enough
and I don't
horses.
see that. I don't see
Kansas City has been keeping teams in games all season long. As previous seasons, they would have run them out of the building. The Cowboys-Packers is going to get a lot more hype.
Well, it's going to get probably the most eyeballs.
Well,
it's going to be
Fox's
70
only
million,
too.
man.
It's going to be insane. The one I'm most curious about is actually the Browns-Texans.
Our Brownies.
I'm really curious to see what that is all about.
Me too. Browns took a week off.
It might be a horrible game. It might be a defensive slugfest, and in terms of aesthetics watching football, it may not be pretty, but that's the one I have the least feel for.
That's the one. I don't have a feel for Bucs Eagles at all. I don't.
No feel.
That situation in Philly is. I thought John Marks, our good buddy in Philly, formerly an Odyssey employee, he had a really good tweet yesterday. He said there's something going on in that locker room with a coach and player. There's something happening. No matter what they say publicly, there's no other explanation for why they look this bad. This is next level bad. When the Giants beat the crap out of you on the last game of the year where you're trying and they're just the Giants, it's not good. And in the same way, Tampa, like, what is Tampa? Tampa's favored. They're going to lose. If Tampa's a slight underdog, which they are now, maybe they play well. They're capable of scoring. They're also capable of being just awful, and Baker's got bad ribs. I have no feel whatsoever for Eagles-Bucks, other than I think I want to bet the under. Because at this point, I'm done betting overs. I've been betting overs all year, and they keep kicking me in the teeth. You mentioned not getting another streaming platform. I was watching the Golden Globes yesterday with the wife. That was, minus Joe Coy. It was a good show.
Not a Joe Coy fan?
No, I like Joe Coy. He was awful. He was awful.
That bad, huh?
But there were a lot. I watched a lot of the award nominees. Yeah. So we watched it, and they had a Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren show on Paramount Plus, like some old Western show.
It was a spinoff of Yellowstone.
Yeah, and so I saw it, and I went, man, I love a good Western. I want to watch it, but I'm not going to because I'm not getting Paramount Plus. Like, I'm done getting new streaming things.
Or do you have Netflix and Max and Amazon?
So I think the story in Kansas City, I think the story's Tua. He's not winning these games. The division's on the line, and he threw a breaking out route to Chase Claypool in double coverage.
Not a good throw in that spot. And the play before that could have been picked off, too. That was a bit of an airmail to Tyreek Hill. And I think it was Taylor Rapp made a play on it that damn near picked that one off as well.
And I think Taylor Rapp ended up picking him off the very next play. I don't know, man. Like, Kansas City's been weird and Mahomes and whatnot, but they're at least home. I don't know what I'm going to get from Tua. Is Tua going to be awesome? Or is he going to middle of the road, bad? Like, I don't know what Tua I'm going to get. Everybody's highlighted it. He tends to struggle in these games. We told Joe Fisher, Dolphins, Cowboys, kind of the same thing. They can't beat a good team on the road. Dolphins struggle just to beat a good team in general. And that's the unfortunate thing. So I think that game is as much about Tua as anything else.
Yeah, it's a massive storyline. I think Mahomes going into the playoffs for another year is always going to be a big deal. Like, if they lose in the wild card round this weekend, it's dumb, but we're going to have to do the what's wrong with Kansas City, even though they won the Super Bowl last year.
Are we really going to do that? They just
this is how the sport works. This is how people's brains are little, and this is how...
I'm not doing that.
This is how folks operate. I'm with you, though. I think Tua is the biggest story. I saw a funny tweet last night, somebody asking the question, who is Mike McDaniel's Matthew Stafford going to be? Basically saying that Sean McVay was this way in L.A. He inherited Jared Goff when he got the job. They were great. But there was a ceiling on what they could accomplish. At least that's what they felt. And that's why they made the trade for Matthew Stafford. Everybody said, oh my God, how could you do that? They go on to win the Super Bowl the next year. And so basically saying the same thing with Miami is like, you got a lot of weapons. There's a lot of pieces in place there. He seems to be a good, intelligent, creative offensive head coach. But do you have the quarterback, and who is the Matthew Stafford going to be that comes in and puts you over the top. I am kind of rooting for Miami in that game, though. I like to Kansas City has been a lot of fun. I'm excited for them to go into a new chapter of their era of like some adversity and having to work their way. Like everything seemingly has come so easy for them for 5 years that I almost feel like it's good for their long-term story if they lose this weekend. There's a little bit of turmoil. There's a little bit of like, all right, we got a chip on our shoulder. We got to come back from that loss. So I'm kind of hoping Tua gets that win. It'd be fun. I'm rooting for him.
Let's get to the national championship game. We might dive back into the NFL at some point, but we got two guests coming up. Let's talk Washington, Michigan. Big game tonight. We'll talk about it next on The Fan.
It's The Fan.
I was just a skinny lad.
This is a wild card week edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
on 1080 The Fan.
It's a national championship game night. Swigard, you know how I know that? You know how I know it's a national championship game, aside from looking at ESPN.com?
Natty night.
How's that?
Dirt's eating a Jimmy John's sandwich on a couch during a commercial break.
Don't shame me.
I'm not
okay?
shaming you.
If we can eat breakfast food for different meals of the day, we can eat different meals for breakfast too.
I used to be adamantly against that, and then I met my wife, and, you know, if I eat spaghetti for breakfast, it is what it is, you know?
Dude, a cold pizza for breakfast,
Ooh,
like that works
so
too. I will say that we had another baby shower yesterday. I was not at this one, but it was her side of the family's baby shower.
How many of you had?
This is the second one. So
Okay, two's acceptable.
Well, they got another one coming with just friends, so there's going to be 3 of them.
no, we don't. This is the last one.
How dare you?
This is the last one.
How dare you?
Thankfully. Although if anybody else wants to give us more stuff
I
that
was
I don't
gonna
have to
say,
buy, you
yeah.
can go ahead and give us anything you want. I'll take all the free stuff I could get. And they had Jimmy John sandwiches at the baby shower. And then I came home yesterday and there was like a fridge full of Jimmy John sandwiches. And you bet your ass I'm going to eat the hell out of those things until they're gone. I woke up this morning. I thought I could make something for breakfast. Or
Breakfast has already been made.
I can grab a sandwich that is ready to go.
Well, I don't know what my dinner of choice is tonight. It's a weird night in my house. I've got kid events happening. I'm trying to kind of find my way out of it for obvious reasons. Washington, Michigan is here.
How important is the kid event? Like, what are we talking here?
It's ninja.
Ninja night?
She's in ninja
She's
class.
she's in ninja class.
It's not karate for those that hear that and think, why don't you just call it karate? It's not. She's not actually learning karate. It's
karate.
It's where they do gymnastics. It's a big building, and one of the classes they offer is called ninja.
That's
and
kinda cool.
It's like parkour.
Parkour.
Like she does monkey bars that
She
lead
was
into
learning how to use
rings that
Chinese
lead into
stars
like
or something.
running up a ramp. It'd be cool if she did learn how to use those stars.
Throwing at somebody.
Go to my room, huh?
Now, is this like just ninja practice or is this like a ninja game?
No, I mean you try to move up in levels of ninja, but
they move up at practice, so it's good. Like,
Do they have belts? Like
I got a lot of questions out of
they have
this.
T-shirts.
T-shirts.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why they call it ninja. They should really call it parkour because that's kind of what it is. They're just doing obstacle course stuff like Ninja Warrior.
Ninjas are cooler.
Well, my daughter does like saying she's got ninja class.
I'm a ninja. Does she put like a little like
No.
a headband thing on? Or
She's not a
nothing?
Ninja Turtle.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
it's not a movie.
There's no. Who was the old rat guy? What was his name?
What?
Who was their like leader guy? What was his name?
Oh, and Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles?
Is that Donatello or
No,
Michelangelo?
the rat. It wasn't the rat the leader. Like their
I just
guy.
knew they ate pizza all
Their
the time.
Tatra. What was his name?
I'm blanking now that you're saying it. No, don't look it up. Let me get it. Don't even look at listeners.
Well, I'm going to
either.
look it up because I can't.
Splinter.
Splinter. Thank you.
Master Splinter.
Does she have a splinter in her class? Like
No.
the master of ceremonies?
No, it's a woman who's maybe 19 years old. I don't. It's not a. It's parkour. Okay, God. I don't know. He's stuck up on this thing. The title games here. I mean, it kind of. I think this matchup, and we'll get to Danny O'Neill coming up here at the bottom. I feel like this matchup, you just know how you feel about it, and that's just hope that you're right if you care about being right on sports opinions. It's a tough matchup, I think, for both sides for different reasons. DeBoer's awesome. We know Harbaugh's awesome. I don't know what much more to add other than is Michigan going to run the hell out of the ball?
I mean, yes.
Bleed the clock. Michigan basically admitted in their press conference that if they win, they're going to take the football because they want to kill like 8 minutes of the first quarter. And so I think it boils down to, is Michigan going to run the football successfully?
How healthy is Dylan Johnson? How effective
Not
can
very.
he be?
Yeah.
And can the Michigan pass rush disrupt the timing of Michael Penix Jr.?
That to me is the only thing that matters in this game.
Which one?
The pass rush of Michigan.
That's
it.
the only thing.
Michigan's got to be able to run the ball in Washington.
Okay, so there's not going to be a lot of possessions there.
That's fine. Is Washington going to score every time they touch the football? Because they have the capability of doing that if you don't pressure Michael Penix. Is Michigan going to eat up 6 minutes and come away with a field goal because they stall? Because J.J. McCarthy's not that good? Like, you can run the ball and control the clock all you want. If Washington's averaging a touchdown every possession, congratulations. If you come out and you say, I want the ball first, and you run it and eat up 6 minutes, but you only get to the 50-yard line, you fail on a fourth down, and then they go and score a touchdown and you punt again, all of a sudden your pucker factor's there. Congratulations. congratulations on your time of possession. I don't think it matters. The only thing that matters is making Michael Penix uncomfortable and slowing down Washington's passing offense. I've seen this movie too many times. Michigan's bigger. They're better at the line of scrimmage. So were a handful of other teams that played Washington this year.
So
the difference is they have Michael Penix, who is one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in college over the last 10 years. This is one of the most prolific passing offenses we have seen. I'm not going to go best because we're a couple of years removed from Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson at LSU.
I think they're in that conversation.
But they're in the conversation. You got to win tonight to be solidified in that conversation. And if you don't throw off Penix, I don't care how much you run the football. You're not going to win the game.
You know, I feel like I've heard that, and I've probably even echoed it at some point this year. I feel like I've heard they're better at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And then nobody disrupts him. Like, so maybe they're not.
Outside Arizona State.
Well, that offensive line did win the Joe Moore Award.
They did.
No, I know, but like that's kind of my point is they're kind of an under the radar unit. And we said this about Texas. Maybe just these units aren't better than them.
Yeah, and I actually thought Texas's defensive line, despite the final score, had a decent game. Like they bottled up Washington's run game, like to the point of his Dylan Johnson healthy. Like it wasn't like he did much against Texas anyways. They couldn't run the ball in Texas. And I also thought they got pretty consistent pressure, but whenever they did, what did Penix do? He slid away. He found a way to evade. He used his legs a little bit. Like he just played an unbelievable game. And so it's got to be consistent. You can tell me their corners are better than Texas. That's fine. But even if you have contested catches, who do you trust to make those plays?
Right.
How many times does Rome Odunze have a guy draped all over him and he comes away with the catch? High points the football.
We got back-to-back ticker stops here. Clayton Sayfie, who covers Michigan, and then Danny O'Neil is going to join us coming up next. We'll have a little bit more on this one. But let's get the lowdown from both angles here. National championship game. Will the Pac-12 win a title again? Will Washington complete the dream season, or does Harbaugh go out on top? We start with Danny O'Neil coming up next for the Daily Ticker. But first, Swag with the sports update.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Stanford's. The classic American Steakhouse has exactly what you've been craving. Visit them in Clackamas, Tanasbourne, or online at stanfords.com. First on The Fan. Quite a way to end the NFL regular season. The Buffalo Bills grabbed the number 2 seed in the AFC, 21-14 over the Dolphins. That gives the Bills a date with 7-seeded Pittsburgh Sunday morning. In the NFC, the Packers handled the Bears 17-9. They grabbed the last playoff spot there and will visit number 2 seed Dallas, who demolished the Commanders 38-10. That game Sunday afternoon. Green Bay's win also ended the season for the Seahawks, even though they came back to beat the Cardinals 21-20. Super Wildcard Weekend will start Saturday. 5th-seeded Cleveland visiting 4th-seeded Houston. That'll be followed by the 3-6 matchup pitting the Dolphins and Chiefs in Kansas City. It's Black Monday for teams not making the playoffs. Falcons firing Arthur Smith from his head coaching position. Adam Schefter also reporting Ron Rivera has been relieved of his head coaching duties in Washington. It's the National Championship College Football Playoff game tonight in Houston. Number 1 versus number 2, a pair of 14-0 teams. Michigan, a 4.5-point favorite over the Washington Huskies. You'll hear kickoff over on 910 ESPN Portland beginning at 4:30. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Every day, get the NFL headlines delivered straight to you. Follow The Fan. In this wide world of sports, some stories can slip through the cracks.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules.
This is the Daily Ticker, where Dirt and Sprague visit the insiders that are covering the stories you've heard about, and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, Daily Ticker time here on a National Championship Monday. We're going to go to Ann Arbor here in a few moments, and we'll get the Michigan side of the preview. But let's go to the Washington side of things with Danny O'Neill of the Say Who Say Pod. You can find his Substack, DannyO'Neill.substack.com. You can give him a follow on Twitter at Danny O'Neill. Danny, good morning to you. Thanks for hopping on the show, man. What are the emotions waking up the morning of a national championship game? What's going through your head this morning?
Well, you feel that this is kind of found money. There's no way that any Washington fan should have or could have expected this, given what we'd seen from this team over at, I mean, it was just 2 years ago. They're losing at home to Montana. So I'm nervous. I'm really excited. I feel kind of bulletproof, honestly, after what everything Washington has played through this season and how good their quarterback's been. Look, if Michael Penix plays the way he did against Texas, they certainly have a chance.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about the matchup with Michigan and everybody highlighting the Michigan running attack and the Michigan defensive pass rush. I'm curious, is there an angle for you when examining these two matchups that is it just Penix for you, or is there an angle that you're kind of eyeing that you think could make a big deal difference for Washington's side? Because right now it feels like it's pretty loud for just if Michigan does X and Y, they can win tonight.
Yeah, Brandon, I think if Michigan runs the ball, and Washington's defense, while it's improved from a year ago, there's a big part of me that wondered if Steve Sarkisian just got too smart for his own good last Monday in New Orleans and decided, it's really boring to run between the tackles and gain 6.7 yards per carry. Let's throw the ball a little bit. Jim Harbaugh's not going to get bored. Jim Harbaugh is more than happy to win this game throwing 3 passes if that's what it takes. So my big fear, Michigan is a very strong team. My fear is that Washington is not going to be able to get them off the field, and you're going to see multiple drives of 12-plus plays in which Michigan kind of just chokes them out and, more than anything, denies Washington opportunities. Michael Penix he can face pressure, and we've seen teams pressure him, but he doesn't take sacks. So I don't think this is going to be a case where, they just can't deal with the pass rush. He'll still get the ball out. He'll still make plays. And if Michigan has an Achilles heel, it's that for as strong and as dominant it has been at times, they don't score a ton of points. So I feel like Washington is going to have a shot, but my fear is that Michigan's ground game just is kind of a metronome that they never really find an answer to.
Yeah, then the Harbaugh note, what did they run, 32 consecutive run plays against Penn State, and that was their first relevant game of the season, so he's not afraid to run in the football a ton. Danny O'Neill is our guest. Say Who Say Pod with our friend Christian Capel. You look at this streak that they've been on. I want to say, I'm speculating here, but I want to say I read it's like the longest streak of wins of a touchdown or less or whatever it is in the modern college football history. It's a long streak, and they keep finding ways to win, and we talked about that going into the Pac-12 title game of there's something there that Washington's been battle tested and Oregon's been kind of steamrolling everybody. If this is a tight game, Washington has that experience to lean on. What is it about this team? Can you put your finger on anything? Is it just Penix and Odunze and they're unstoppable? What is it about this team that they always find a way to win these tight ball games?
If there's anything, I would say it's experience. Washington had a number of guys that came back, and you mentioned one of them in Odunze. Penix to a certain extent, but Troy Fautanu, their left tackle, they had a number of guys who I think in a normal year would have gone to the draft after last season in a normal situation. And the experience that they brought back with them, I think, is a huge part. Certainly, look, Penix, other than the middle of the season when he may or may not have been hurt following that first game against Oregon, has been, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country. And I thought he looked phenomenal against Texas, and that's certainly a big factor. But if there's one thing that you sort of hang your hat on of why have they been able to do it late, I think it's because they've got a number of guys who are very experienced and people that have been playing at a pretty high level, and that gives them a huge advantage down the stretch in tight games.
Yeah, Danny, is there a side defensively, because Penix does get a lot of that attention? I've noted this going into the Oregon State game, for example. I feel like their pass rush and their secondary play. Their Washington's defensive numbers are not very good statistically, but I do feel like the last 3-4 weeks of the regular season and then what they've done lately, it feels like that pass rush is kind of rejuvenated and different. It feels like the secondary, and I know Muhammad's going to play tonight, it feels like the secondary is better. I think their defense, I'm not sure the numbers represent what this defense kind of currently is. We talk about stopping the run. How do you feel about truly that Washington defense gearing up for an offense that is going to be so heavily set on running the football and bleeding the clock?
Yeah, I think you're right about Jabbar Muhammad he's been a really good corner and a huge upgrade for them. Elijah Jackson, who plays on the other side, who Texas kind of picked on, he's big and he's a pretty good player too. I think they've upgraded at both corner positions. Their ability to get pressure without blitzing, which you kind of referenced with their pass rush. Braylon Trice, ZTF, they've got a kid named Zach Durfee who played for the first time he's been ineligible all season. He played for the first time in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. He's another edge rusher to watch. And then they've got a couple of pretty big, stout guys in the middle. Not a lot of depth at defensive tackle, but their ability to get pressure without blitzing is one of the things that gives them a shot, because they can just rush forward, especially with Trice. Trice is one of the better all-around defensive ends that you'll see. He's maybe not the fastest twitch edge rusher, but his ability to play both the run and the pass and to make a difference even when he is getting chipped is one of the big assets for this defense, because it means they can get pressure without sending extra players. And quite honestly, they can't afford to send extra players because they have been vulnerable, and specifically vulnerable against the run.
I've been picking against the Huskies as a Duck for a long time now in the second half of the year, and it's not working out good for me, Danny. You make me look like an idiot every consecutive week that goes on. So I have now given up, and I'm just I think the only thing that matters in the game tonight is can Michigan get pressure on Penix? If they don't, I don't care if Michigan can run the ball. Texas ran the ball. Penix and Odunze, they're just too good, and you're not going to stop them. 4.5 is too many points. How do you feel about the spread? How do you think it plays out?
I hate to agree with the Duck.
Hey, I'm the dirty one in this conversation right now.
I might agree with the Duck. Look, man, this is all heart, no head.
Yeah.
In my evaluation of this game, yeah, I think it was about the time. It was about the time that they beat Utah. And I just felt like, okay, all rationale, they're eventually going to get burned by cutting it so close. They're eventually going to pay for this. Something's got to be. At some point, you sort of just lean into the uncertainty and say, this team has shown for an extended period of time that it's able to do it no matter the competition. And I do feel that way. I think Rome Odunze was the best player in the conference this season. And I think he's an enormously talented player. And you watch with the way that the accuracy that Penix had last week, it tells me that there was something going on in the middle of the season that affected him throwing the ball. And that was as good as Washington. And Washington has been fortunate to have some really good quarterbacks. And there has never been a Washington quarterback that played better on a bigger stage than Penix did last week. And I kind of feel that ability, Michigan's not going to be able to score enough to keep up with them ultimately. But again, that is entirely with my heart and not my head. I do want to say one thing, that I think that the worm turned for the Washington program after that horrible loss at home when Jimmy Lake made the stupid comments about academically prowess. And the reason it turned is because, look, I've been to a lot of Washington games and I've taken a lot of L's from Oregon. I've always left the stadium furious at Duck fans. And you might say that's projecting and that's anger. After that horrible decision in which Jimmy Lake cowardly decided to punt late and had the snap sail over the punter's head, I went immediately from the stadium to my red-eye flight to New York. And what I thought is we deserved that. We deserved that. And I think maybe for the first time, I properly acknowledged the success that Oregon has had. I grew up in Klamath Falls. I have deep roots in the state of Oregon, and I have always loathed the Ducks. And at that moment, when I was going to take the light rail to take it back, I gave a sense of, I've got to stop hating, and I've got to just recognize they're better than us. And at that moment, I think something in the cosmos shifted. So it was my finding of respect for the Ducks, and I felt that way this year and even last year's game. I thought the two teams played incredible games.
Yeah.
I thought they really did. And and maybe it's easier for me because now Washington is on a mini win streak, though certainly not enough to counterbalance the 12 straight that they lost. There's a feeling of a healthier respect between the two programs, and I'm really happy about that. I thought Oregon had a great team this year, and I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to butter you guys up.
Well, now you know why I'm giving up on Washington. I'm trying to put something up into the cosmos that gets a Michigan dominant win by 40 points tonight, and I don't know if it's going to work, but it sounds like it worked for you. You lost to Montana. Your coach is punching players. How did we get here, Danny? How did we get here? Danny O'Neill, say who, say pod. Great stuff. Enjoy the game today. Somebody who's been there at the emotional roller coaster that is a national championship game. It is not for the faint of heart. Thanks for the time this morning. Go give him a follow on Twitter at Danny O'Neill. Good luck tonight, Danny.
Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
There you go. Danny O'Neill with a preview.
I've got to stop hating. That's funny.
I'm there, man. I give up. I'm done. I'm calling uncle. My arm's twisted behind my back. Like, I'm not picking against him anymore.
I can't blame you for that. And I'm still sitting here kind of with you. I don't have as much stake in that rivalry as you and Danny, but it is remarkable to remember they had a punt sail over their head down 8 late in the fourth quarter, and their coach hit a guy in the face in the middle of a game on live TV. And just 2 years later, they're here in this position. It's wild, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense other than the right guys stayed and they got the right coach.
They lost to Montana.
Unbelievable.
They lost to Montana. All right, let's go to the other side. Clayton Safety with a preview of the Michigan side of things for tonight's national championship game. That's next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainsplumbing.com.
Taylor looking to throw again. Step, toss, Slayton, touchdown! On the catch and run. And the Giants are pouring it on.
Ian Eagle there on the call as the Philadelphia Eagles end their season losing to the New York Football Giants, and they limp into the playoffs against Tampa Bay for a Monday night matchup.
They are broken. There's some numbers behind Hurts that I want to get to later on in the show. I don't know where they go from here, but they don't look like the same team over the last month and a half.
Who's stinking it up? Lately, it's been the Eagles. We'll see what they do against Tampa. Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Make plumbing and electrical services delightful. Get your time back. Let the pros tackle whatever project you need completed. Schedule an appointment online. Three Mountains Plumbing. That's threemountainsplumbing.com.
I feel like every 10 seconds I'm seeing a new tweet. This team is interested, and this team wants him, and this team wants him. Does this feel like it, win or lose for Harbaugh tonight?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the national media seems to be kind of all over that and talking about it more than the game. But honestly, those of us who have been around it here the last few years, you just don't know going into any offseason. So it's hard for me to predict. I don't know that Jim Harbaugh knows at this time. I know he loves it at Michigan. I know he also probably wants to win a Lombardi trophy at some point too. So it's kind of one of those things where even if he thinks he knows, he's been known to change his mind in the past about different things, including when he almost came to Michigan in 2011, but then didn't. And then they hired Brady Hoke. So this is a guy who's pretty unpredictable. And I think either way, it could be his last game or he could come back. So I know that's kind of a boring answer, but I've gone through this enough to know that nothing's certain.
Yeah,
Clayton, what is the matchup? A lot of noise, I think, on Michigan side. We just did a Washington preview, and it feels like it's a lot of, will Michigan run the football, and will the pass rush get to Penix? I'm curious from the Michigan side, what is the matchup maybe most concerning for Michigan that people that don't watch every game of Michigan need to know?
Yeah, I think it's just the combination of everything Washington has offensively between having an elite quarterback in Penix, 3 NFL wide receivers, the scheme that Kalen DeBoer runs, and a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line to protect him. And honestly, he gets the ball out quick, as you guys know, but that doesn't mean that it's a bunch of short passes. If, he can get the ball out quick, and these receivers get such good releases that you can still throw the ball downfield. So that could neutralize Michigan's pass rush in this game. The Michigan defensive line is one of the best in the country, maybe the best. I mean, 7 ended up being, after a stat correction, sacks against Alabama. So these guys can really get after it. And it's not just one guy. They'll come from the interior. They have guys on the edge that are capable as well. They don't have that Aiden Hutchinson, but they have about 8-9 guys that they rotate in. So I think a huge key in this game for both teams will be, one, protecting Michael Penix if you're Washington, and getting to Michael Penix. You don't even need to bring him down 6-7 times like they did against Alabama. But if they can make him uncomfortable in the pocket, I know he's great at moving in the pocket, but if they can make him uncomfortable, that's going to be huge because then your secondary doesn't have to cover as long. Michigan hasn't played a passing attack like Washington all season. I don't think many teams have, other than teams that have played Washington. So that's going to be intriguing too. At the same time, Washington may not have faced a defense like Michigan. So it's kind of that side of the ball is what everyone's talking about. Maybe it's a trap I'm falling into by talking about it here because there are other areas that are important, but that's certainly going to be the one that's most interesting to me.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's talk about one of those other angles, though, because I've seen a lot of the, Michigan's going to try and control the clock, and they're going to try and run the football, and, we want I think somebody said they want the ball first, so they're going to get it and try and eat up half that first quarter.
They indicated
that, win the toss and receive. How do you think they're poised to run the football? We saw them do it against Penn State. What was it, like 30 straight runs or something like that in the second half? Like, they're not going to go away from the run or shy away from it. So how did you feel like the run game was against Alabama? And how do you feel like it's ready to go tonight?
Yeah, it was pretty good against Alabama, especially early on. I think Alabama made some adjustments in the second half and really stymied it. Michigan only had 22 total yards and 2 first downs in the first 25 minutes of the second half until the final drive that they had to go 75 yards, tie it up, force overtime, and then obviously win the game there. So Michigan has a very good rushing attack. And I think it'll be a little bit easier, at least, to move the football on this Washington defense there. Blake Corum is perhaps the best running back in the country. And really, I think the month off did him well. I mean, he was coming off the knee injury last year. Didn't maybe look fully like himself all year, although he was still an elite running back. But I think he looked a little bit closer to that against Alabama. And Washington fans know what Blake Corum, at full speed looks like. Obviously, they played him his sophomore year. He had 170 yards, a few touchdowns. So, Michigan, I think, is going to stick with the run. You said it. I mean, they closed out that Penn State game with 32 straight runs. The difference with this Michigan team, though, is that they will go away from it if they have to. They will use J.J. McCarthy's arm quite a bit if they have to, and he is great at making plays, too, whether it's extending the play, scrambling for yards, throwing downfield. He had a little bit of a shaky start against Alabama, but kind of settled in and really led them on that drive late. So, this is a complete offense that maybe doesn't play as fast or, isn't as high-flying as Washington, but they're going to play slow. They are going to control the clock if they can, sustain drives, and it's going to be, it might not be as pretty to watch as the Washington offense, but, in what they're trying to do, it might be just as effective.
Yeah, winning a title, I mean, who cares how you do it as long as you do it? I want to ask you, Clayton, because we've picked against Washington a couple times this year. We've been wrong, so they continue to prove a lot of people throughout the country and even here on the West Coast wrong. They feel like a real dream team. Michigan's a tough matchup for them. If this game is tight, I'm curious how the Michigan faithful feel about my old classmate leading the special teams charge. Jay Harbaugh did not have a great showing against Alabama. My old classmate struggled, and I'm curious where that is on the worry scale of, like, you need to execute this special teams play to maybe win a national championship. Pretty poor showing, bad snap on an extra point, almost a muff punt. Where are people at collectively? I know drop punt, actually two of them. Where are people at on the Michigan special teams unit?
Yeah, it's crazy that it has been their strength over the years, and really starting when Jay Harbaugh took over. I mean, he's been one of the top special teams coordinators in the country. And then in probably, the biggest game they've played in a long time, you could put the Ohio State games up with it just because of, how big that rivalry is. But then it's the special teams that struggles, and they win in spite of that. So it was pretty remarkable when you think of it like that. But I don't know that it's super high up on the worry scale for Michigan fans, just because it's been so good, not only all year, but all Jim Harbaugh's tenure, pretty much. So I don't know that it's a huge worry, but at the same time, I think nerves in this game, which I think, could have played a factor in the Rose Bowl against Alabama, are something that you're worried about, because it just takes one mistake that could shift the course of this game. Both teams are so good that they're going to capitalize. So if you do drop a punt, like Washington did in their last game as well, but Michigan dropped two, if you have a high snap that leads to a missed field goal, which also happened on a 49-yarder that James Turner attempted and missed, then that could change this game. So I think it's definitely something to watch, but I kind of think they got those out of the way. That's how I see it, because it has just been so good all year.
Yeah, and the rust factor, too, not playing a game for almost a month, right? There's a part of that goes into it. Looking at this game, 4.5 feels like too much to me when I'm looking at the number. Michigan wins. I'm not surprised by that. It feels like it's going to be tight. How do you feel about the way it plays out? And does Michigan get it done tonight?
I do think Michigan's going to win. I've said it before the Alabama game. I said it's probably a coin toss type of game. I think it's probably a coin toss type of game like this, and that's kind of what you expect in a national title game. I know some of them, including last year, have been lopsided, but I think this is pretty evenly matched. I do think Michigan's going to be able to move the ball on Washington and maybe control the clock a little bit. I do think Washington's going to hit on some big plays and be able to move the ball as well. So I think it's going to be a somewhat exciting game, but I got something like 34-24 Michigan. And just kind of trusting this defense that I've seen, really answer every single test that they've had all season long.
No, it's nice to have the SEC out of the game. That much I know. Can't wait for it tonight. Michigan and Washington. Clayton Sayfie with the Wolverine.com, the On3 site at CSAYF23 on Twitter. Go give him a follow. Thanks for the preview this morning, man. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, there you go. Clayton Sayfie. Good stuff from him. Not sure if it's it for Harbaugh. I see his point. I mean, Harbaugh's kind of a weird dude, and he's been bouncing around probably in his own brain about what he wants to do.
The Don Yee move to me is like the indicator of all indicators, and maybe Clayton will be right. He's certainly dead on the in and out kind of nature of him earlier, and even as the coach. That's a different move, though. Hiring a specific NFL-related guy as your agent, I think, is the flag waving of thank you, I'm done after tonight.
Also, the NCAA drone circling overhead and I don't want to deal with this. I just want to go coach football. But let's talk a little bit about the national title game. How do we feel about the matchup? Who are you rooting for tonight? I got a poll question up. It's got a ton of votes and interesting responses and results so far. We'll get to that. A few more thoughts on the NFL wildcard weekend and final week of the regular season. It's a loaded final hour. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
I believe you deserve the left, Tagovailoa back to pass, looking, throws left sideline, intercepted. It's picked off by Taylor Rapp, and that'll do it. The Buffalo Bills are going to win the AFC East. They will be the 2 seed in the playoffs. Taylor Rapp seals it.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com. Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at WarrenAllen.com.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
Here in our house, you better bring your A game or we're going to kick your butt.
Whoa. The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Final hour, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, and live on YouTube, where the comment section is lively as it always is. Go check us out, youtube.com/1080 The Fan. We got a lot to get to here in the final hour of the show. When is it okay to smoke a cigar in a locker room? Should we have that debate?
There's a follow-up to that.
There is a follow-up.
Okay.
Yes. People are still upset about it, despite the follow-up. Not an okay thing to do. That is off limits, evidently, so that's a thing we can discuss today. When is it okay to score a late touchdown in a game that you've already won? That was a debate from the NFL weekend.
Are we buying Draymond Green saying Adam Silver talked him out of retirement?
No.
Come on.
Wait, he said that he was going to retire?
Golden State Warrior Draymond Green, this from Woj, suggesting Adam Silver talked him out of retirement. Quote, I told him, Adam, this is too much for me. It's all becoming too much for me, and I'm going to retire.
Guy just signed a 4-year, $100-something million contract, and he's just going to walk away from the next 3 years on that deal. It's year one of that deal.
Also just re-signed with Cowherd's podcast network, and he's got an episode debuting. I'm really sure that this all really happened.
I, too, also think sometimes stress would get me to walk away from $80 million, but then thankfully Adam Silver is there to talk me off the ledge.
By the way, the noise on the Harbaugh stuff, it only intensified in the last 4 minutes since we talked to Clayton.
Yes.
All indications, this is it. Win or lose, he's gone.
I mean, that's been my feeling for a long time. Harbaugh's a weird dude, so I don't know. Maybe to Clayton's point, we get caught off guard. I would be, if I'm doing a percentage out of 100, I'd say right now internal confidence is at 96% that this is his last game.
I'd raise it to 99 personally.
Yeah,
I don't care if I'm wrong.
Husky P1 also texting in saying he's terrified that if Harbaugh leaves, that Kalen DeBoer is going to be the next coach at Michigan, which would just be an ironic twist of fate. He still hasn't signed his contract extension, but probably smart on his part because he's waiting to see if any other jobs open up. And also, if you win a national championship, he would have felt like an idiot if he signed the extension 3 weeks ago. And now if you win a national championship tonight, give me an extra $4 million a year.
A Husky fan's the one that brought this up. I almost want to do a poll question. Would you leave Washington for Michigan?
I mean, yeah, Michigan's a better job. It's okay to admit that. Washington's a great job. Michigan's a better job.
Yeah, you don't win a title in the first 2-3 years of Michigan. They're going to want to fire you. I don't know if you ever fire Kalen DeBoer if he wins tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't fired Harbaugh yet, and he hasn't won. This is the first year he's ever won a playoff game.
But he's beating Ohio State, is my point. He's
I mean, you got to beat Ohio State.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to beat Ohio State and have success.
That's the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl.
Sure, and I would say that, and I think the same thing would be, if Kalen DeBoer was 0-3 against Oregon, I think the same thing would exist for him, right? So I think that's kind of where everywhere you go, there's going to be pressure. I just look at, resources, recruiting base, and all that, Michigan's a better job.
Well, yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, absolutely.
Doesn't mean he's going to leave, and doesn't mean that Harbaugh's going to leave, but I also am with you that I think it's near 100% that he is gone. Let's hear from both coaches going into tonight's game. Here is Kalen DeBoer. He was asked about the SEC not being in the title game, which is something I'm excited about, and here was his answer.
Oh, I guess I don't get caught up in that. I mean, for us, it was, our personal goal to get here, and we were going to play whoever we had to play in the semifinals, and whoever was next, and that's Michigan right now. We're just blessed to be in this position to be able to play the game. So I think it says a lot about the parity of college football and how many teams could be in this spot. I think that was something that was noted, I think, especially in the latter half of the season, as undefeated teams still were holding on, and that next wave of maybe one-loss teams was really strong and doing well. So it says a lot about college football that you have, different teams finding their ways to get to this game.
So no SEC in the game for the first time since 2014. It's been 10 years. Are we excited about that tonight?
We're already talking about it too much. The SEC gets to win everything in football. It's all about the SEC. If you beat the SEC, suddenly you're legit.
Now Michigan's the real deal.
Yeah,
not the real deal.
Feinbaum says they're cheaters. It shouldn't count. They beat Alabama. Well, I've actually retracted that statement. Say, let's go to Phyllis. I'm done. Can we move on to the next cut? I'm so tired of talking about the SEC. It's the entire sport. The SEC.
I think since we've had national championship games, which started in 98, 99, whatever, I think there's only been 7 times an SEC team hasn't been there. So
they also don't play by the same rules.
Yeah, that they don't. Here is Kalen DeBoer. Let's see. These are both a little lengthy, so I'm not going to do that, actually. Let's hear from Jim Harbaugh. He was asked about his future. Is he gone? Here's his answer.
Couldn't be more happy to be here. This is a tremendous scene. They do everything big in Texas, and this is cool. This is right where we want to be, Heather. This is where we work to get there. Yeah, there's a calendar. I'll gladly talk about the future next week.
That dude's gone. He's so gone.
I hope to have one. How about that?
I hope
a future. I hope to have. Thank you,
Justin Fields. I hope we're here next week.
I hope we're here. That dude is so gone, man. I think that what makes this game so fun is the fact that it's 2 teams that haven't been there. This is the first time either of them has played in a quote unquote national championship game. I know they both won national championships, but in the modern era, first national championship game appearance. You get different pockets of the country that are represented. Michigan finally breaking through. Washington hasn't been on this level of stage to get over the hump in a long time. So I think you have 2 very excited fan bases. It's 2 very different football teams, 2 very different styles. You have Washington trying to do something to become really the second team to have defensive numbers and recruiting numbers where they are. The only team that's been comparable to win a title is Auburn in 2010, and they had a guy who won a Heisman Trophy who carried them to that championship. And Washington has Michael Penix, who is an incredibly special player. I think this game has everything you want. I know my rooting interest. Who are we rooting for tonight? Easily Washington for you?
For me, it's Washington. Yeah, my cousin will be watching this with his buddies that he graduated with, and they're doing a watch party. I'm sitting on my couch and I'm hoping for a great football game. I am pulling for the conference. I'm pulling for the West Coast. And also the cheating thing lingers for me. Michigan fan probably hates you. Oh, shut up. You literally admitted to cheating this year. It's why you suspended your coach. It's just weird. It's just odd. And this sport has been running rampant with cheating in all kinds of ways for decades. It is really weird that this team was caught cheating this year and none of us cared and they weren't punished other than you lose your coach against teams that are less than good, that are less than you. I just think it's odd. So, yeah, I'm rooting against the cheaters, and I hope my cousin's happy.
So, who are we rooting for tonight?
I'll be rooting for the Huskies.
Yeah.
That might be controversial in this market.
No, if you remove the Duck thing and even some Beaver fans who hate Washington, isn't the better story? I mean, it's easily Washington, right?
It's a great story. DeBoer and Penix are, from all accounts, stand-up guys, just doing things the way that you hope a big-time national program would do them to get to this point. I mean, I haven't heard of any skeletons in the closet for either of them. So
there's a good story on DeBoer. Feldman's done a few of these, but Feldman wrote a really good piece of what makes him different. And then they have some coaching takeaways from other coaches. One of them that he has quoted is Chris Peterson, who he works with at Fox. And Peterson told a story that when DeBoer got hired, it was like the second day or third day he'd been hired. And that program, remember, 4-8.
Mm-hmm.
He met with DeBoer for a lunch. And they grew up in different parts of the area. He grew up in South Dakota. Peterson was in California. But they had this common ground of coaching at smaller schools and the appreciation for it and what it kind of teaches you at that level to work your way up. He said they talked for 2.5 hours. And at one point, he told Kalen DeBoer, oh, man, you got to go. I'm wasting too much of your time. And DeBoer goes, we're good. No matter what, he just seems that when he sits with people to talk, he's all in. He's just a very attentive guy, and he doesn't seem like the distracted coach who lives every single hour of his life obsessed about it all. He is detailed. He is organized. He obviously knows a lot about the sport. He also seems to be grounded, and that's another reason I'm kind of rooting for him. I find him to be a great coach. And I always talk about life balance. Mario Cristobal has none. Dude works 17-hour days, goes home, sleeps for 3 hours, and then goes right back to the facility. I don't personally think that's healthy. A lot of coaches operate that way. DeBoer seems to have more balance in his life. And, so far it's early, but so far at the D1 FBS Power 5 level, he's rewarded for it.
Oh, absolutely he is. I would say him and Peterson have another thing in common, and I mean this as a compliment. They're incredibly boring. Like, there's just not a lot of, they're soft-spoken. Their emotions seem pretty even-keel no matter what's happening to their team. Like, I feel like you look at them on the sideline, and if you didn't have the score bug in the top, you wouldn't know if they're winning. You wouldn't know they're losing. I don't know much about either of their personalities. It's not like they're all over YouTube or doing these, different videos or hype things.
Right.
Like, they're just very run-of-the-mill. They look like average guys. They're having a good time coaching football, and he has had an unbelievable run. And I don't know. I can't wait. There's not really much else to preview with the game, right? Like, we all know the matchups.
We know what it is.
We all know what it is. It's going to come down to turnovers. Does somebody muff a punt? Like you brought up the Michigan thing. They muffed a couple of punts against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, so maybe that's the determining factor. Maybe the Washington luck finally runs out and it's a tight game that they lose because they've won so many in a row, and Michigan comes up with a big play. I think we're in store for a great game tonight, back and forth. I'm going to take Michigan to win, Washington to cover.
Yeah.
I think 4.5 is just too much. I'll take Michigan as the overall better team. I don't see this being a blowout either way, though.
It's going to be funny if what wins this game is a Jack Westover out route to get a touchdown with like 8 seconds, and it's Westover. And
Just
you're like,
as we all predicted.
I mean, it doesn't sometimes these games, it does kind of boil down to dumb little things or a player that doesn't get as much noise. And he's certainly, I think everybody in the Pac-12 circles knows, like, hey, that guy's actually pretty good. Nobody talks about him, though, because there's 3 other wide receivers that are also pretty good. I'm fascinated to see what Dylan Johnson looks like, if they can get any kind of push. I still think Penix, having some quarterback delayed runs is underrated.
Mm-hmm.
And what can that defense do against the run? Can you push Michigan back a little bit? I tend not to think you can, but again, this team has proven a lot of people wrong all year long. Maybe it's just a team of destiny thing. It goes back to the O'Neal conversation, and I think the point you made, and I think it's spot on. I don't care how die-hard purple and gold you are. Don't give a crap. You did not see this coming. It is remarkable that they got to this spot just 2 years after being 4-8 and punting down 8 points like a minute to go against their arch rival. I can't believe they're here.
I would say it's remarkable they got here after barely beating Arizona State and Stanford in back-to-back weeks this year.
Well,
it's
that
two of the
too,
worst teams in the conference, and they could have easily lost both those games.
A 4th down drop and a pick 6 is what separated those two things.
And a missed defensive pass interference call against Arizona State late in that game, right? It's just amazing how thin the margins have been, but they keep finding a way to survive. And at some point, you just got to tip your cap and say that's the leadership and the veteran angle and Penix and Odunze. They've been remarkable, man. I can't wait. Not controversial to root for Washington. I asked the poll question last night. Got about 1,100 votes on this one. Who are you rooting for? It's 54 to 45
54
with some margins.
Michigan?
54 Washington.
Oh.
Rooting for Washington.
Look, I can't tell anybody how to root, and you're going to hate whoever you hate. I just tend to kind of gravitate towards the West Coast, screw the rest of college football, and screw those cheaters.
Yeah, if you're not an Oregon fan, that's a strong rooting interest on the West Coast to see the Pac-12 in their final year. What a Pac-12 way to go out, man. Balls of glory. Conference can't survive, but we got a national champion, potentially. Game is tonight. We'll have some final thoughts on it in the last segment. I want to dive back into the NFL. When is it okay to smoke a cigar in a locker room? That was a controversy from over the weekend. How are we feeling about these quarterbacks? A couple of the notes from the final week of the NFL season next on The Fan.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
This is a wild card week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Some big news in the golf world if you're into that kind of thing. Tiger Woods is leaving Nike. This has been rumored for a while now. Kind of started, honestly, after the car accident because Nike could not figure out how to make a shoe that made him feel comfortable. This is how nerdy golf people are. Tiger wearing FootJoy shoes was like that's a big deal. And he's been doing it now since the car accident the last couple of years. He was asked after his last tournament about his partnership with Nike, and he basically gave the Jim Harbaugh answer about, will you be the coach in Michigan? It's like, yeah, we're partners now. Everybody's like, uh-oh, he's leaving. And so that was a now 27-year partnership.
Wow. About
$500 million in payments to Tiger Woods and billions generated in sales. And he is a free agent, and he's going to start a company potentially. Tiger not wearing Nike is going to be really weird.
Yeah, so I forget the name of the company. I read about this yesterday, the day before, randomly, I saw a blurb. He's reportedly leaving Nike. There's a company he's going to become owner and get equity stake in. And I'm forgetting the name of the company, so apologies. What are they doing with golf at Nike is kind of my big overarching question. Jason Day also left a $100 million deal, and he joined a Filipino-based company that makes golf gear. I checked that out over the weekend.
Malborn or whatever?
Yeah.
Or Malbon.
They got some cool stuff I saw on their website, and there's just a lot of intel. Nike stopped making golf irons and clubs a few years back. Personally, I've been a big fan of some of their golf gear the last couple years. I'm just kind of curious what Nike, are they just going to fold up on golf? And you mentioned it during the break. They have a Tiger Woods building on that campus. Does that go away?
They do. They host a lot of big stuff in the Tiger Woods building and a lot of memorabilia. It's fascinating because you don't see this happen very often where guys are with the company for like LeBron leaving Nike would be a big deal.
Be weird.
MJ leaving Nike, right? Like that's where.
Are those athletes big enough? MJ probably, you could say yes. LeBron, Tiger, are these big enough athletes to just start their own thing and succeed?
We'll find out.
Or is it piggybacking on a company and then using the name with the company?
I mean, I'm sure Joe Exotic branded it or trademarked it because that dude's got some time on his hands in prison, but like Tiger King clothing line would be pretty cool. Pretty badass.
I mean, when you use that, everybody kind of steals that Tiger clubhead logo. Just using that in general is badass.
It's going to make you millions of dollars. So Tiger's leaving Nike. We'll see where he goes from here and what the new line does. Yeah, if you listen, I have a lot of strong opinions on golf apparel as a golf apparel wearer all summer long, and Nike's stuff has sucked for a long time. Like, they have just let that ship sail, and everybody has passed them by. And I don't know, like, they're putting swooshes on the back of shirts. They brought cotton back.
I didn't understand
dumb
that.
Brown and yellow colors. Like, every tournament you watch on the big stage, you do immediately, you're like, what is Nike doing here? And you look at Adidas, and sometimes it's outlandish, but it's like, all right, at least it looks comfortable and kind of cool. I think Nike's been lapped by the other companies. So we'll see where Tiger goes from there. I want to get to a couple of the notes from the NFL weekend. Is it okay to smoke a cigar in the locker room if you don't make the playoffs? Because that happened with Seattle this weekend. They beat Arizona, but because of all the other things that happened, they did not make the playoffs this year. The Seahawks are going home, and their season is done. Greg Bell, who covers the Seahawks.
Friend of the show, Greg Bell.
Yeah,
two G's.
Two G's, Greg. Said cigars, but not playoffs in the Seattle locker room after the late game rally win at Arizona. And it's because a handful of the players on the Seahawks roster, I think some defensive backs got together and they were taking pictures smoking cigars in the locker room. And this led to just an absolute S-storm from everybody of like, how could you do this? You're peeing on the graves of your ancestors. And then Julian Love, who was one of the guys in the picture, came out and said, insinuating that we're celebrating not making the playoffs this week, Greg. These cigars were given to me to celebrate the birth of my son, and I waited until the end of the season to share a moment with my guys, and he wanted to have a picture taken. Are we okay with smoking cigars in the locker room after the birth of a son, even though you didn't make the playoffs?
Well, first of all, Greg Bell is not a clickbait hot take guy.
No.
The only thing I'd say, I bet he regrets just not finding the information.
Yeah.
Versus just kind of insinuating they were celebrating Matt Prater missing a 51-yard field goal like an idiot
right.
to beat the Seahawks. Yeah.
I love that this was a thing.
You're a normal person. I'm a normal. Swag is a normal. We're weird in different ways, but we're normal people. Yes, smoking a cigar for the birth of your son or your coworker's son. I believe it is okay. Yes.
That's okay. It's acceptable to do in society.
Yes, it is.
I love the things that we get outraged by. It cracks me up. Like John Ryan sent out a tweet. This isn't the Seahawks that I know and love. Like, dude, calm down, okay?
The punter?
Yes, the punter. Like, take a deep breath. I know you threw a touchdown in an NFC title game. Everything's going to be all right. The other controversy we had from the weekend, is it okay to score a touchdown as time expires when you're up 41-7? Is that acceptable in society?
Not okay. This goes to the unwritten rules conversation.
Yes, I love unwritten rules.
Not when you start that scoring sequence in victory formation, as if you're just taking a knee. Now, they asked permission. Dennis Allen said no, and they gave Williams a tutty anyway because Jameis said in the postgame all of the guys overruled Dennis Allen.
It was a Rudy play. It was the end of the Rudy game. They were going to take a knee, and they all overruled it.
Arthur Smith, you really weren't mad about that, though.
No.
You were mad because you suck.
Yeah, go back and enjoy your family billions.
And even if you took the touchdown away, you still lost, what, 41-14?
Dude, this is one of my goals in sport. We got to get past this stuff, dude. We have to. They threw a pick. Wasn't the pick returned to like the 1 yard line? The pick that set up the drive. It was like a 1 yard. Yeah. It was one play. I mean, so you're on the 1 yard line. There's a couple of seconds left. You want to score
but why be in victory formation? That's kind of like,
I mean, sure. Then they decided in the huddle, like, that's not what we should do. And they're like, come on, let's punch it in. It's 41-17. What difference does 48-17 make? If you want 3 minutes of entertainment in your life, and I'm not the biggest Jameis Winston guy, go watch his post-game locker room session with reporters where one guy was like spouting opinions of, I disagree, you disrespected, you got to play him twice next year. Like, yeah, that's going to have an impact on the outcome of next year's Saints and Falcons game when they're going to have a new coach, a new quarterback, a handful of their roster is going to be gone. I'm sure this is going to be simmering for years to come. The Falcons will stay awake at night for the next 365 days until they can face their nemesis, the Saints, again. Like, stop it. We got to move past this unwritten rule crap. I can't stand it.
A game, by the way, that nobody cared about.
Nobody cared about. Neither team's going to the playoffs. Like, the Saints, like, what?
The Saints were waiting for the outcome, but still, it was middle of the road, bad Saints team. Bad Falcon team. Who cares?
Like, everybody properly made fun of my sport of baseball when all of us fuddy-duddies were like, you can't throw your bat after a home run. And it's like, that's fine. It's hard to hit a home run. Toss your bat in the air.
Everybody pimps them now.
Go wild. Have fun with it. It's cool. Like, can we move? Can we evolve in other sports? It's okay to score a late touchdown. I want to get to a couple of quick things here in the next segment. I threw out a poll question last night on quarterbacks because they all had interesting weekends.
I couldn't believe the response. The first 40 votes of this poll question. I kind of got mad.
Was it an easy choice for you?
It's not an easy choice. It was the results of the poll that I saw, and I was like, "What? Like, what?" And we have to talk about that poll question.
So I'll give you the results. I'll tell you the question. You can play along with us in the next segment. And then, a couple other NFL anecdotes, including what in the hell is wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles, man? They look absolutely broken right now. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on that. We'll get to those back into the title game in the final segment. But first, here's Swag with SportsCenter.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by X Golf. It's indoor golf season. Check out X Golf in Vancouver or Tualatin, the home of indoor golf, online at xgolfpnw.com. First on The Fan. The final playoff spots and seeds were set in Sunday's dramatic end of the NFL regular season. The Buffalo Bills will be the number 2 seed in the AFC after a come-from-behind 21-14 win over the Dolphins. They get the AFC East crown and will host 7th-seeded Pittsburgh Sunday morning. In the NFC, the Packers grabbed the last playoff spot with a 17-9 win over the Bears. They will head to number 2 seed Dallas and take on the Cowboys, who ripped the Commanders 38-10. That game will be Sunday afternoon. That Green Bay win also ending the season for the Seahawks, who got a comeback 21-20 win over the Cardinals. Super Wildcard Weekend will start Saturday with a doubleheader. 5th-seeded Cleveland goes to 4th-seeded Houston to take on the Texans. That'll be followed by a 3-6 matchup in the AFC, Dolphins and Chiefs in Kansas City. Black Monday for the rest of the NFL, wondering if their coaches are the right ones in place. Falcons have let go of Arthur Smith. The Commanders let go of Ron Rivera. Final college football game of the season tonight. A national championship to be determined in Houston. Number 1 Michigan, a 4.5-point favorite over number 2 Washington. Both teams 14-0. Pregame at 3:30. Kickoff just after 4:30 over on 910 ESPN Portland. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your home for bowl games and the college football playoff. The Odyssey app and Portland's sports leader.
Now, I don't move too fast, and my talk is kind of slow.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
An athlete is dead to me. We'll close up the show with that. Some final thoughts on the national championship game.
Like actually died, or you've just cut
dead
him
to
out of your
me.
life? Oh.
I'm cutting him out. Enough is enough.
It's a weird phrase. He's dead to me.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird phrase, isn't it?
Like, who started that in the Old West?
It's also not that serious of a story, but I still want to talk about it nonetheless. I put up a poll question last night because I feel like there's interesting conversations about each of these four guys. One of them did not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
3 of them did. One was bemoaned on national TV last night. One has played like ass for about 2 months. And the other one, it seems like, is peaking, but we'll see what he does. And I asked the question, your franchise needs a quarterback. These 4 guys are available. You have to pick one of the 4. Okay, we're doing a fantasy draft in the NFL. All the other good quarterbacks are gone. These are the 4 best ones. You got to pick one of them. Tua, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, or Trevor Lawrence were your 4 options. Do you care to guess which quarterback at about 700 votes is leading this poll question right now?
Yeah, I'm going to guess, and I didn't check it to see. My guess is the same guy that was leading when I saw this vote total at 35 votes, while one of them had 0.0%.
Yeah, one guy took a long time
and
to get a vote.
I don't understand it, and that's whatever, but I'm going to guess Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is in second place. But it's a very thin margin between Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love, with Tua flagging way behind. He was the guy that didn't get any votes.
He had 0 votes, 35 votes in.
He's at 11% right now. Jalen Hurts is leading this poll question at 31. Trevor Lawrence is at 29, and then Jordan Love is at 27.
I voted for Hurts.
You voted for Hurts?
Yeah, I thought about it. It wasn't easy.
Interesting. So still, even despite what has happened and what they've looked like for the last 2 months, you never want to get too caught in the moment, right? He has not had a very good year. The Eagles have been a dumpster fire for the last 2 months, but you're still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt long term.
Well, I mean, it's not like the alternatives have much else to brag about. The Packers limped into the playoffs and they got it done, but like, are they going to beat Dallas? I don't know. And I saw a decent chunk of that Packer-Bears game, and it felt like they left a lot of points on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence, certainly last year with the comeback and getting to the divisional round and almost beating Kansas City, and Kansas City was great. And then he followed up this year with a bit of a dud, didn't win any games in the final 6. And then Tua's got this problem with beating really good teams. He beat Buffalo last year when he was concussed. He didn't beat Buffalo again. And so, to me, it's just like I've seen at the very top, if all things are great, I saw one of those guys in the Super Bowl last year.
Very true. Very true. The thing about Hurts that I have a hard time with, and I don't know if it's been, I was looking through some of his numbers last night because that was it was an embarrassing game this weekend.
Somebody posted a photo of Charlie Batch in a Steelers uniform and said, "This is Hurts when people aren't grabbing his ass to push him into the end zone." And I just like, I think he's a little better than Charlie Batch. Come on.
Slightly disrespectful, but I'll allow it. I'll allow it as evidence. I was looking through some of his numbers, and it was like, because he had a really good year last year. He was somehow in the MVP conversation. I don't quite understand that.
It was the same reason Brock Purdy was.
Yeah, but
when you're good, the quarterback gets the credit, man.
I know, but go look at the numbers, though. Like what Purdy's done. Like, do you remember Jalen Hurts' passing numbers last year?
Top of my head, no.
Okay, you know how many touchdowns he threw for?
27?
22.
Okay. How many rushing touchdowns did he have?
How many of them for the 1 yard line?
Well, I know.
That's the follow-up
total
question.
Touchdowns and passing yards.
I'm not giving you credit for having a strong offensive line and you squat a lot. He does score a lot of touchdowns. But the difference between him last year and this year, like his passing numbers aren't that far off. Like his turnovers are up from where they were last year. His rushing numbers, I think, are drastically different. Like I looked, so this year he only has 3 games with over 50 rushing yards. And only 2 games with a run of 20 yards or longer. So that's like just having big impacts on the ground and having big explosive run plays. Last year, it was 7 games over 50 yards, so more than double, and 5 games with a run of 20-plus yards. So he was having more explosive runs. And you go look at the playoffs and what he did. In all 3 games, I want to say he was over 50 yards. He had like 120 rushing yards against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. His rushing numbers are down almost 200 yards from where they were last year. So I don't know if it's injuries or what's going on there, because he has been banged up throughout the course of the season. But I look at him as a good athlete with good weapons around him. That's just not, I don't put him in the same category as a thrower of the football as some of the other guys. And that's why I wouldn't answer him. And I hope that I'm not a prisoner of the moment. But I'm kind of falling into that trap. Like Jordan Love would be my answer. I think he had a really good year this year. He proved me wrong. I've made fun of that draft pick and the Packers thinking because Aaron Rodgers fell years ago that Jordan Love will be the same and let's sit him on the bench for a decade and then have him play. But the Packers have one of the youngest offenses in the NFL, one of the youngest teams in the NFL.
Yeah, Watson and Dobbs there to kind of grow with him.
Now, a head coach that weren't like, we kind of gave Rodgers the credit for winning there, right? So nobody was really sold on the floor. He doesn't have one of these elite. He doesn't have an A.J. Brown to throw the football to or a Devonta Smith. No disrespect to the Packers wide receivers. And he just went out and had a really good year, made the playoffs in a difficult NFC. And I think right now of the guys that I trust going forward, there's something going on with Lawrence. You have been hitting on that for a while. I've never really been sold on Hurts. Despite what last year was, I think that was a byproduct of having an elite team. He had a good year, but I'd never put him in the category of Lamar and some of these other guys. And Tua, you have a hard time there staying healthy, and in some of the throws he makes in big moments, I don't necessarily trust. So I hope I'm not a prisoner of the moment, but I answered Jordan Love in the poll question.
Well, the interesting thing about Jordan Love is he finishes the year with 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks, and it started out really good against Chicago, and it was like, holy crap, and then it kind of took a nosedive, and they look incompetent offensively. And the 2 receivers I even named aren't necessarily even out there. Like Watson's been hurt.
Been out all year almost.
Dobbs wasn't their leading pass catcher last night or yesterday. So I think Love deserves a lot of credit for what he was able to do today. Those are tremendous numbers. You're getting that from the quarterback spot. You look around and you say, how can we fix it? In fact, his play recently is what kind of makes me look kind of side-eyed at that Dallas game of, well, can you jump out to an early lead and kind of stun the crowd? Because if the Cowboys go down like 10-0 or even 7-0,
the pucker factor
there's going to be a pucker factor. Now, Dallas, I still think, is going to win that game, but it's something to build on this year, even if they were to lose.
Green Bay's kind of playing. That's a game where Green Bay's playing with house money. They got nothing to lose in that game.
Let's also be fair to all of this. Jalen Hurts, I still think, is really good and can be really good. He has not had a great year. I thought, personally, it was a little weird that just from one last year, everybody was putting him in the top 5. I remember having a debate with Danny about Lamar or Jalen Hurts. It was kind of bizarre to me because we had established success with Lamar, whereas Hurts went to the Super Bowl, so he's instantly propped up.
Yeah.
Tua, man, we have both said we like Tua. I think Tua's a good dude. He's a good story to root for. I'm starting to struggle to see some of like the franchise stuff. He needs to he's got a big prove it weekend. Go show up in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And even if you lose, go have a good game.
Don't be the reason you lose.
Well, he's a massive reason that they've struggled at times this year. And oh, by the way, hasn't lost as many fumbles, but he's got a fumbling problem this year. He tends to throw at least one stupid pick a game. You saw it last night at the end. So I've got questions about him. Lawrence, I don't know what that is. This is a guy that didn't come in with quite the same level, but damn near Andrew Luck can't miss prospect level. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's only year 3, but woof, what a dud of a year 3 and a bad. He missed some bad throws yesterday, man.
He did.
Like I was wondering, I didn't want to text you because you and I were texting enough in that group.
Yeah.
But I was watching that game on the red zone, and every time they'd come back, 3rd and 6, let's see what Trevor Lawrence is going to do.
Incomplete.
20 yards over the guy's head. I was just like, how is Dirt feeling about Lawrence right now? Jacksonville's in a weird spot with him. So I don't think that there's necessarily the right answer here.
No, there's not. I was just curious where people were at.
A lot of this is overreacting to the moment and what you see. But yeah, I think I voted Hurts, but certainly understand why people vote Love, Lawrence, and even maybe Tua for some people out there, though not a lot of people.
Very evenly mixed out. I did have one other quick quarterback thought I wanted to bring up. So I thought the Sunday night game was great. We talked about it in the first hour. If you want to go check the podcast, you can find it. Buffalo wins. They win the division for the 4th straight year. They've won 5 in a row. And now they look like that team that we kind of have speculated on for the last 6 weeks of like, you get to the playoffs?
Dangerous.
I don't know if I want to play Buffalo. And I know they weren't good in the postseason last year, and they lost at home to Cincinnati, and they almost lost to Skylar Thompson in the wild card round.
So they're going in feeling good.
Yes, there's confidence that's building. A lot has been made of the Allen turnovers, even from us, where we're big Josh Allen guys. He has turnover problems. He had turnover problems. Like that first pick that he threw, terrible pick inside the 10-yard line. He had the fumble later in the game when they were driving. He's just kind of trying to move up in the pocket, and the ball gets knocked out of his hands. The pick in the end zone that was on 4th down, that's a smart play, actually, and we need to stop criticizing those. Give your guys a chance. It's 4th down, and it ended up gaining them 15 yards. So that one was fine. But with his turnovers, it's funny because when Dak has the turnover stuff, we made fun of him when he had the 10 turnover comment at the start of the year, and Dak has had a great year. So tip of the cap to him. He's been terrific this year for Dallas. I think the difference with a guy like Allen when he turns the ball over so much is that I'm almost willing to look past it because he makes so many incredible plays. Like you're trading, like you just know that he's going to have 2 or 3 a game that you're like, what are you doing? Why? And then he's going to have a throw where there's an all-out blitz. No, but somebody doesn't get picked up. He's throwing back-footed and airmails one to Stephon Diggs on the dot, like 45 yards down the field. Or late in the game, he's going to scramble on a 3rd and 13 and lower his shoulder and get a first down. And I'm like,
dude, Dolphins DBs were... They didn't know what to do with him when he was out in the open field. So I saw somebody retweet, what is this account? @JackFrank_something. And I thought he had a really funny tweet on during the game. He said, Josh Allen's like a great cook who never follows any recipes or measurements. He says you're going to get some gnarly meals, but you just got to keep trusting him to do the right thing because he's so special.
Yes, and he's so good.
I mean, this goes back to his first playoff game at Houston.
That's right, yeah.
And he still wasn't Josh Allen like the thrower of the football. He was more like, I'm going to run you over. I'm big body Josh Allen. You remember he had the weird like behind his head toss where you were like, what the hell is he doing right here? But it came down to the very end.
It did. They almost won.
He's not perfect. He obviously makes a lot of mistakes. But you're so right that when he is on, like when he has it dialed, I almost think he needs to have a turnover in a game. Like it
kind of snap him out of it.
Yeah, it almost makes me a little more confident in his ability, especially if it's early. I'm like, well, he got it out of his system early.
That's right.
He's certainly not the guy. Like if you go through the AFC, Mina Kimes had a thing last week where she says she thinks Kansas City gets the AFC title game.
Yeah.
Absolutely can happen. I'm not going to look past it, even though we kind of both doubt the Chiefs a little bit here, right? But if you look at the AFC, how many teams scare you? It ain't a lot, and Buffalo is one of them because that guy on any given weekend could go into Baltimore and randomly we go, oh my God, they're kicking to beat the Baltimore Ravens right now.
For sure he
like,
can.
It happens. It can happen that way. And his ability to be that kind of player, man, it's got to be nerve-wracking as a fan and also kind of like weirdly exciting. Like, I don't know what we're going to get for him, but it's going to be exciting and fun.
What's going to happen on this play? I have no clue.
I think I'm going to bet on him. I really do.
To win the Super Bowl or this weekend, you mean?
No, I got to bet on my team to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bet on him to win the AFC.
Yeah, it's a good value bet.
Not just Pittsburgh. Well, I don't know if it's a good value. I have to go look at it, but Baltimore deserves the credit of being the favorite and having home field. I don't know. This season's weird. It's a weird season, and you say that almost every year, but this is a year where you go through the 14 playoff teams, Dirt. How many can you count in your head out loud? Definitely you put them in. They can win the Super Bowl. I did it yesterday. I think I got to 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Like half the field, I think, could have a path where things go the right way. Swag saying plus 280 to win the AFC. That's not amazing value, but I'd be willing to take a flyer on them because I think they can do it.
It's worth it, man. I'm with you there. Let's close up some final thoughts on the national championship game, which is tonight. You can hear it over on 910. We'll answer some poll questions. Close things up next on The Fan.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Well, look, I've always supported him. I took his side in the divorce.
Oh. Uh-oh.
It's over, though.
Who's dead to you?
It's over.
Who is it?
He's dead to me.
Hold on. Swigard, can you guess the athlete who is dead to dirt who he took the side in the divorce?
How dare he?
We're not talking real divorce, right?
No, not a real divorce. Actually, kind of, but not really.
What?
It'll make sense.
I'm going to say Rodgers.
No. Damian Lillard, get out of here. Don't retire the number.
Bow down, bitch.
Burn in hell.
Wow.
He's dropping off free shoes.
Burn in hell?
I'm just kidding.
I hope so.
I love you, Dave. I'm just kidding.
Knock on wood if you would. Wow.
He dropped off shoes for the Huskies. Don't you remember your roots?
Did he, though?
It's in the state of Oregon.
Did he drop it off, or did Adidas say, hey, you're there?
No, I didn't see. Was he in Houston? Were they playing in Houston? Is that why he was there?
So, yeah.
How dare you? At first, he's still going to Oregon State games, supporting the Beavs.
Honestly, he's more of a Beaver than a Duck anyway.
Now we're showing up in Seattle. Here's your Adidas gear with your dumb uniforms and your stupid company. I'm out. I'm out on Dame. Go, Jody. Made the right call. Big scoop guy. I'm going to get some goggles. I'm all in on the Blazers again.
How have they not? By the way, side note on the Blazers who have become so irrelevant in our lives.
Yeah, what do you got?
How have they not, even if they're not exactly the same, because I'm sure his are too expensive, how have we not made scoot glasses for sale at the Moda Center yet?
It's a good idea.
Like
goggles, scoot goggles.
Scoot goggles. Yeah. Like, how do we not just make that?
Yeah, this went, we had some fun with this in a group chat of mine with some buddies who were all pro-Dame and anti-Blazers currently. And people
they switched?
I'm going to go buy a Scoot jersey. Wow. I'm going to cheer on Jody. How dare you? How dare you, Damian Lillard?
Hey, he's jumped. He got out of Portland. Why? Why do you want to leave Portland ultimately?
He wanted to go win a championship.
He wanted to go win. He might not do it, so he jumped on the team that might do it. What do you want from him?
Trying to ride some coattails, man.
He's trying to get any ring he can at this point.
Oh, I love it. National championship is tonight. You can hear it over on 910. Pregame's going to start at what, 3 o'clock, something like that?
3:30.
3:30. There you go.
Yeah,
the game kicks off.
ESPN's trying to say this is a 4:30 game.
4:50. Count on 4:50.
I count on 5:15. Are you kidding me with this crap?
I mean, as long as it starts earlier than the Sugar Bowl did, that got over way too late.
Well, that's also because the Rose Bowl went long.
Yes,
they held that kick for a good 20 minutes.
Yeah, because we save a West Coast kick so we can all say, "Oh, look at the sunset."
It's got to be at the right time.
As if we haven't seen a sunset ever in our lives.
Have you ever seen one over the San Gabriel Mountains, though? Okay?
Yes.
Sunsets hit different down there.
I've watched the Rose Bowl every year of my life. I have seen that sunset.
I want to roll through some poll questions before we give some final thoughts on that. You guys can answer these as we go through. Most likely AFC upset: Texans over Browns, Dolphins over Chiefs, or Steelers over Bills?
Is the Texans over the Browns? Are they underdogs?
Yeah, Texans are 1.5
In Vegas, they
underdogs.
are. Yes, they are an underdog.
I would say that. I think that game's pretty even. I think it can go either way.
I'm going Dolphins.
Dolphins is the number one answer, 48%. That's where I answered as well.
I'm surprised it's number one.
Most likely NFC upset: Packers over Cowboys, Rams over Lions, or Bucks over Eagles?
Bucks over Eagles.
Rams over the Lions.
Yeah, I answered Bucks Eagles.
I like that Rams-Lions one, too.
Rams-Lions, number one answer, 44%.
The hook is gone.
Yeah, it is. Quarterback question, Jalen Hurts won that. Who are you rooting for tonight? Washington, 54% of you rooting for Washington. A lot of votes on that. I can't wait, man. I'm excited. Go to Michigan, blow them out, beat them by 80.
Well, you took Huskies plus 4.5.
I mean, I know I did, but I'm not actually gambling on the game. I got to put it out in the ether.
Yeah.
I'm done doubting them.
Good luck to everybody.
Team of Destiny.
I told you, I don't know if I'm built for my team to be in that spot. They won't be,
dude.
Because I don't know what that's like, and I don't know if I want to know what that's like.
It's not emotionally fun. I'll say that, and especially when your team loses, it's not a great feeling. Because then there's that, like, all of that for nothing.
They could go 1.5 up on you.
Back in the day, if you have a great year, you win the Rose Bowl. It's like we're Rose Bowl champs.
Yeah.
Like whether you won a title or not.
Yep.
Now it's like you're just, all right, congrats on your playoff win. National title tonight. We'll break it down tomorrow. Whatever happens tonight in Houston. Thanks so much for being a part of our Monday. Go check the podcast, 1080thefan.com. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get it, and on YouTube as well. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Calling us next. Listening to 1080 The Fan.
I'm Trista Crick with BetQL. With college basketball season in full bloom right now, we can finally start looking at some trends. One team that's been almost a sure thing so far this year is the number 12 ranked BYU Cougars. BYU is 11-2 against the spread so far this year and 12-1 overall. So as they enter Big 12 play, look for them to cover the number because this team is for real. I'm Trista Crick, helping you beat the books and bet smarter with BetQL. Download the BetMGM app today.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Here's to everyone who was made to shine, from Shane Company. To wearing your lucky gold chain to the game, to receiving your first communion in your new pearls. Here's to getting down on one knee, to recommitting to forever, to saying yes to something sparkly just for you, just because. Here's to your first set of diamonds